Hello, listeners of the Mad Scientist Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Cogswell. So this is sort of a bonus episode that me and a good friend, TJ, over at Pints and Puzzles, decided to put together. And so the idea was we would, drink beers throughout the night, just kind of talk about our top 5 favorite paranormal things, how we got started in podcasting, and kind of give like an intro to each other's shows, I suppose, or at least each other's personalities. So I really hope you enjoy this one. It's pretty long. It's much longer than a normal episode and even longer than a normal roundtable. This will act as a special episode, like I said, so it doesn't take the place of any episodes in our series. And I highly suggest you go and give TJ's show a listen. Thank you so much, and here is this episode. Welcome to the Mad Science and Pints and Puzzles Super Podcast episode! Hello, listeners, and welcome to a very special episode of the Mad Scientist Podcast and Pints and Puzzles. I am joined here with TJ from Pints and Puzzles, the host and producer of that show. Hello, TJ.
Hello, Christopher.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. So we've seriously been dicking around for like an hour already trying to get this like recording thing to work because, they're going to give me a PhD in a couple of weeks. So it's completely normal that I don't know how to do anything with technology.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, no, it's totally good. It's totally fine. So
for two podcast producers,
right,
can't figure out how to work Skype.
Two guys who do this on the weekend as like a hobby kind of thing. Yeah, it's pretty good that we don't know how it works at all. So we are here doing this episode kind of as like a special dual episode. So I'll release this on the Mad Scientist Podcast, and TJ is going to release it on Pints and Puzzles. And we wanted to create kind of, I guess, like a synergy or like a dual stream kind of thing. So we've both been extremely heavily influenced and helped by Astonishing Legends.
Mm-hmm.
And we also, that's kind of how we met, actually. Was I forget now how we met on Twitter.
Yeah, it's one of the episodes I just started tweeting you random shit about. Once Scott released your name to the public, it was kind of went downhill from there for you.
Right. Yeah. So that was cool. I mean, that's cool. You know what I mean? And so we've become friends now. And TJ's the only reason that the show sounds good because he sent me this microphone I'm using. Otherwise, I would be recording using like a tin can or something weird.
I'll be honest, that was totally selfish on my part. As a listener, I'm like, I want this to sound better. I got an extra microphone.
This sounds like crap. Send him something good. Yeah.
I never said it sounded like crap. I said I wanted to sound better.
It's fine. So now we're, so TJ's show is really great. I really enjoy it a lot. Not just blowing wind up your ass. I do enjoy your show a lot. I listen to it all the time. So we were thinking it'd be kind of cool to do like introduce ourselves to each other's audiences, go through our top 5 like favorite paranormal or conspiracy or weird topics. And we thought this would be a lot of fun as like a bonus episode or something special for you guys. So TJ, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I always say this is like for my listeners. First of all, there's going to be cursing in this one. I know I usually edit it out of mine, so we're gonna say fuck sometimes.
There's already been a lot of cursing.
There's been a lot of cursing, but that was mostly off the air. So just we'll try to keep it semi-professional, but really this is just like Chris said, we have both been very heavily influenced by what I refer to as the Podfathers. So we're kind of the bastard children of the Podfathers.
I'd say that's probably a good
good analogy.
Much. Yeah, that's pretty true, I would say.
In the podcast world, we're still the new guys coming up, and in all reality, when you're both going through, you don't have networks or anything huge behind you yet, it's really good to have people that are at the same level and that kind of get all the bullshit that goes along with it, because it's not as easy as we all make it look. So
no, yeah, and it's so cool too, like having. So I got started with the art, right, where I actually I actually just emailed, like I was laying in bed with my fiance. We were just like laying in bed together, listening to Astonishing Legends, and I remember being like, "Man,
not that kind of episode."
What happened?
Nothing.
Oh yeah,
I'm like, it's not that kind of episode.
Oh no, it's not. I was like, I remember laying there and being like, "Shit, dude! Like they could." I bet I could give them some really cool info on like science kind of stuff, and like. I don't know, like, I thought it'd be really cool. I've always wanted to do something like this. I've always been interested in, like, paranormal things. And when they mentioned the Ark and how they were looking for people, I was like, oh, hey, that seems like an awesome way to get in on this. So I emailed Scott, and he emailed me back, like, right away. And I was just, like, I was blown, because it's like, you don't expect, I don't know, I mean, it's like, if you emailed, I don't know, if I emailed, like, Streetlight Manifesto or something, and, and like Mike Brown emailed back and was like, come play with us. Like he was like, yeah, we could use we could use a second bass player. You know what I mean? It's the same kind of level of like, oh, holy crap.
Because they're kind of pseudo celebrities, and that's one of the cool things. I mean, hell, even you and I are, right? We don't want to admit it, right? But we are to a certain degrry in that
I mean,
we come into a few hundred listeners' ears every time we release an episode.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's
kind of cool. It's very personal, and that's one of the cool things about podcasting is like, these are and I've had the privilege of meeting Scott in person through a whole convoluted way, but met him for a little bit. And he's just like a normal guy, we're just having beers and relaxing, and you're, we've gotten to know each other too, and it's just normal people that are just doing this from their closets in their basement,
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, and that's the thing too. Like, if anyone listening is thinking about starting their own podcast or wants to get involved in, I mean, I can't speak for you, TJ, but if they want to get involved in mine or something, I'm sure it's the same for you too. Send an email. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Hit us up on Twitter, like any way to help ease the burden of research and writing would be phenomenal. I mean,
I always kid around that my arc is basically my wife and my immediate family. Like, I was
gonna say,
and occasionally I'll steal you from them.
Like my arc. Yeah, my arc is basically Marie. It's Marie and Katie. Katie's given me like so many. She'll just like text me and be like, "Oh, you should do an episode on this," and it's a great idea. And then I don't know anything about it, so she has to teach me about it.
You're like, why don't you just do this? Here's my microphone.
Yeah, like exactly. Well, it's funny actually. I've been like, hey, we should do an episode where we put you on, and like, I don't know. Or even my mom. I think it'd be I
would like either one of those on the show.
Dude, I think it'd be so funny. My mom is so hilarious sometimes. When my mom doesn't get drunk. My mom, when it gets past her bedtime, she just gets loopy.
Yep.
And just like giggly and crazy, like silly, right? And same with my grandma too. So when the two of them get together, there was one time they had come to visit me at UNH when I was in New Hampshire. I'm an undergrad, and we went out to a lobster house, and it was like midnight. And for some reason, my mom and my Nona were so tired that they just started giggling with each other. And the reason was that my grandma was holding up her lobster like from the back, so the claws and the legs were out in the air. And she kept like pointing it at me and Katie, she kept saying, "Chiller, chiller." And my mom, like Peter Pants, she was dying of. It's so out of character for my grandma, number one. Like that's probably the only time I've seen my grandma be like silly.
Yeah. You got to get her on the show. If she's still,
oh my god,
kicking around enough that she can do funny shit like that, you have to get her on your show, man.
If Nona ever found out about my show, I think she'd just completely disown me. She'd stop talking to me.
Just don't let her listen to what 3 episodes ago, I think it was.
my mom will like secretly show it to other people in my family, and be like, "Don't tell Nona. She won't talk to us anymore."
The lemon juice.
Yeah. Oh my god, dude. She's not about that. Yeah. Anyway,
I listen to your show too. So, and I'm equally as big of a fan of your show as well. So,
yeah, I think it's a cool. I mean, podcasting is cool because it lets you get, I guess, closer to the thing. I mean, so is Astonishing Legends the first podcast you really like regularly listen to?
No, well, mine was Serial, and I know
Okay, yeah.
that's almost three-quarters of podcasters'
Right.
story, but yeah, I went Serial, and then a couple that had to do with Serial. Believe it or not, Truth and Justice is one of my big supporters now. Believe it or not,
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome.
and they're huge. Bob actually, I mean, is a really great guy. He's really smart too,
Right.
and they're just nice people too. For especially for as big as the show is, and that's one of the cool things is that. So in corporate or school, you have this thing where you have everybody's trying to compete for the same audience and this, that, and the other thing. Podcasting's not like that. It really isn't. And I don't know about your experience, but that's been my experience is they don't care what your numbers are. They're just like, yeah, well, yeah, if you need help, just reach out to me.
Yeah, I think what it is it's the I think it's the I guess like the on-demand nature of it, right? We're not really competing for like a time slot or where people have people have 24 hours in a day and maybe they'll choose an hour or two per day to listen to podcasts while they drive or something, right? I think that's the good thing too is a lot of people use this as kind of filler,
Yep.
Yep.
Or people like me that are stay-at-home parents.
Right. Well, exactly. But
listen most of the day.
That's what I mean, though, right? Like, it's something, though, that you can do. Like, I listen to podcasts when I play video games.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to hear, I don't want to hear Ignis in Final Fantasy tell me he's found a new recipe every 5 fucking minutes. You know what I mean? I want to listen to something else interesting or, so I think it's part of that, like, that cool, that it is something that, if you're big or you're small, kind of getting listeners to the medium itself is better than, anything else. I think it's really interesting. It's funny, though. So you started with Serial.
Mm-hmm.
I started listening to podcasts, actually. I started with audiobooks because I started with the Ricky Gervais show. That's
okay.
like if Ricky Gervais ever like reached out to me, I would have a fucking heart attack.
He's on Twitter, right? He should
dude,
tweet you.
he's my total hero. I mean, I fucking love Ricky Gervais. And so I started listening to those and really became interested in finding other podcasts from that. And then I kind of found my way towards, like, I love conspiracy theories and stuff. So I listen to all the big well-known conspiracy theory ones. Like, every day I listen. And not because I believe them, but because I just find it fascinating that there's this whole other history of the world. You know what I mean? It's like,
and it's been so convoluted now with today's, specifically the past 3 months,
right?
Politically, even though Pints and Puzzles officially has no political views, I know Mad Scientist does have some strong political views. And all I'm going to say is my political views are not that far off from yours.
Yeah, it's
so
fine.
I'm just not as vocal.
Listen, we'll keep politics out of it. It's a little difficult. It's so funny now. The number of scientists who feel like they're, I mean, previously, I guess it had been kind of like, okay, well, we're under attack a little bit from one side. It seems like more, but there's always that. I mean, I think it's really interesting, or it's going to be really interesting now in this era of Republican-dominated government in the United States, at least, how the conspiracies now shift the other way, right? So I bet we'll see more people that are worried about, like, genetically modified organisms and crops and whatever, and people that think these big conspiracy theories, so as opposed to it being like death panels killing old people, it'll be companies trying their best to kill minorities or something. You know what I mean? I think there's always a backlash and a shift, but again, as is like the whole thing of the Mad Scientist podcast, at least, those magical thinking kind of, the myths that we tell ourselves don't really ever go away. We just kind of change their flavor for the period of time that we're living in.
Yeah, I agree. I think the only downside is now, because everything is instant with Twitter. I mean, I'll be honest, that's where I get most of my news from too.
Right.
Is Twitter, because it's easier for just quick snippets. But the problem is we have the term fake news in and of itself being thrown around all the time. So and then you have people like oh, well, people like Alex Jones are all conspiracy theorists. He is not the prime example of a conspiracy theorist. You know what I mean? Like, he is one, but he's not the prime example that we all want to, anybody
No,
else that wears tinfoil hats wants to
he's
emulate.
Yeah, he's more of a, it's interesting now. I love the kind of levels of conspiracy, right? So you have the people that just kind of wade into it a little bit where they think, okay, well, some of the stuff Alex Jones says is a little bit out there, but, maybe he's telling whatever. Maybe he's got a point on some things, right?
Right.
And then you have the full believers of Alex Jones who think that Jade Helm is happening and, fluoride's in the water and killing us, and they'll probably now think that I'm a government shill or something. And then...
Don't get me started on fluoride.
And then you get the next level, though, where they think that Alex Jones is an Israeli plant. Because he never really attacked Israel in the air. And they think that, well, he must be an Israeli plant. Or then people that think, I love the one that they think he's a dead comedian or something. That it's some comedian died and now it's Alex Jones. He's come back as Alex Jones or something. It's like a whole big character. It's fascinating. Anyways,
it's like the reverse Kevin Pollak is
right.
Count State Germain.
right.
Like the reverse version of that.
Although I don't think Alex Jones would want to be on any of our shows.
And
I'm not. Yeah. Anyways,
I'm not sure. Even this show that's going to be really, really fringy, like AAA or tinfoil hat for both of us. I don't even think we would want him on this show.
No, I don't think so. So, anyways, okay. So, what we're going to do is we're going to run through the top 5 paranormal things that we've enjoyed or find fascinating or whatever. I think it'd kind of be cool too to go over what got us. So we talked about what got us into podcasts. What got you into the paranormal?
Sure. Yeah. So,
or the weird, I guess. I always use paranormal to mean like the whole field. It's interesting. I have all these books. Katie makes fun of me because every time people come over to our house, they find like our library looks like I'm some kind of like Doctor Strange mystic or something, right? It's all like there's there's like the textbooks from school and books on like normal books and whatever, philosophy books from when I was taking philosophy classes and everything. But then there's a shelf where it's all like the history of magic and occultism in America and all these sort of like spooky kind of titles, right? And so people must come over and just be like they take one cursory look at our shelf and think like, holy shit, this guy, what's up with this guy?
or I'm sitting there, I'm like, all right, let's get the bottle of scotch out and let's talk.
Let's talk about this. Yeah.
And it varies for me. I think as far as getting into podcasts that are in the genre, that started with Oak Island on the History Channel, I think. And then I started being like, oh, wait, I'm listening to Serial. That's a good podcast. So how do I find other podcasts that are related to Oak Island? That's when I found Astonishing Legends and Nighttime Podcasts.
Right.
Because, and Astonishing Legends, I mean, I think everybody across the board agrees that they're not touching it because of Astonishing Legends.
Yeah.
I know I never will. I'll just be like, refer to 8 hours of Astonishing Legends. Yeah. Which I've listened to twice, by the way. So
yeah.
And still found something new every time. And we can go over that theory when Marie's on the show because I have my own theory on that too. Dude, and hers is great.
Marie is like one of. I mean, I'm super surprised Marie isn't like a detective or something in real life. Like she's so good at finding things. Really, she's such a good investigator that it's sometimes like shit, man. Like if I ever like go missing, I know Marie will find me. Like I know she'll call Katie and be like, "Let's do this." You know what I mean? Like I'm not even worried.
It's funny with all the true crime podcast friends that I've made. I'm always tell my wife, I'm like, Erin, if I ever go missing, call these 3 people, call these 3 podcasts, and they'll at least tell a good story around it.
Right, right. Sell my rights. Yeah.
So hopefully I don't get kidnapped because of something I say on my show.
Oh yeah.
That's why I try to stay away from too fringy stuff. So, but as far as the getting into conspiracies as a whole, I think it was JFK for me. It was two things. It was JFK and the Travis Walton case. So the Travis Walton case was the first, I would say, book, and this is back when we had books, kids, that I ever bought, which was the Fire in the Sky book.
Right.
And that was, whenever that first came out, it had a couple cool pictures of the woods and different things in there. That was before the movie bastardized the whole event.
Sure.
And I'm not going to get too much into that there because I really want to do my own Pints and Puzzles episode on that in the future. But let's just say that was my first interest in there. And then it was JFK. I was bored at work in one of my old corporate jobs, started Googling about JFK, and then I was like, oh, ADD brain. It's like, oh, this is an interesting name. What did this guy do? Google. And then you start Googling all the pieces and just keep diving.
Right.
And then it went from there to CIA to MK Ultra and mind control. And, whew.
Right.
So that was kind of my course. And then podcasting was interesting. I was on a totally different show than Pints and Puzzles now, which I won't mention the names directly. But it was a fun show. I had a lot of fun on it at the time. And then I went when we were having our third child. I went back to work part-time consulting, so I didn't have the time commitment to do that show anymore. But I'm like, I can still make mine when I have the time, this, that, and the other thing, and let's see if I get 30. I'd be happy with 50 people outside of my direct family, because I know that's at least 20 more people than my mom and dad and brother and sister. And then it's just kind of taken off from there. And honestly, I know it's what every podcaster says, but really seeing the downloads, and even if it's just a couple hundred or like a little spike in 10, over the previous month, that makes me keep going to make more episodes.
No, man, it's amazing. I love when I've gotten
your big milestone of 10,000. Congratulations!
Oh, dude, thank you. Well, it's funny, right? I get really it's science is such a metric driven field, right? The saying in science is, or in academic science, let me say, is if you what is it? If it's unread, you're dead, or something like that, right?
Oh yeah.
If you don't publish, you're dead, right? So it's, my advisor is so funny. He's got we're part of a lab that has a phenomenal advisor, and he just he's got so many citations and reads on his papers and whatever, that when I hit 5 and I was dancing around the lab, he was like, 5. I remember when I was happy about such little things, you know what I mean?
Yep.
It's like, come on, man, no, this is phenomenal for me. And it's the same way with this, I love hearing from fans. That's probably my favorite thing. I was surprised even. I figured I'd get the Patreon going. My mom would donate.
Yeah. Katie would donate.
Yeah, maybe some of my friends would donate, you know what I mean? But people from out of the woodwork have started donating and being like, we really like what you're doing. It's so awesome, you know what I mean? It really does make you keep going. But
the fans are key. I still won't do Facebook, for the record. I know I could get a bigger fan base doing that. I just won't do it.
Man, I tried. So the thing that's so funny is I tried even so when I first started, the only people listening to me were my undergrads, right? People that I worked with. So
you ordered to do.
I've got to give him a shout out. So Justin Ramberger and Dan Aceta, are two of the original fans of this podcast. They were probably my first and second downloads, honestly.
That's awesome.
And they still Dan sends questions, Justin sends reviews to me, and things he thinks I can change and make better and whatever. But getting out of that bubble, or even having their friends text and be like, "Oh man, Justin told me about the show. I really like it, and I started listening." That's awesome. It's so cool to have people that you didn't expect. If I ever see I think I've sent out 10 of those stickers. if I ever see a mad scientist sticker on a car I don't know, I think I'll straight up like have a heart attack.
I will slap mine on my car when I'm driving to Cape Cod next time.
There we go. You know, and I'll be waiting on the highway so I can see it. Like, you know what I mean? That's the thing. Like, it's so.
I'll tweet it in every state going up there.
Well, you know, like we were talking before. Like, this is funny. We're already probably like 20 minutes in, and we haven't talked about our paranormal things at all. We've just talked about podcasting. Which I honestly, if people want to learn about it, please contact us. I would be so happy to have inspired anyone to get into this as a hobby. It's so much fun.
I'm not an expert, but I can point you to the right expert.
Yeah, I mean it's so much fun. And like I'm trying to think, I mean, even if you hadn't sent me this microphone, I think I've spent like I broke even the other day.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Because I mean the good thing with me is that, well, the good thing, I haven't broken even in terms of time. If we're calculating the amount of time I could have been working on my thesis or something,
hourly rate.
Yeah, if we're doing an hourly rate, I am deep in the red. But yeah, I mean, it's, I don't know, man. I mean, it's a labor of love right now, anyways.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, I know you don't have any sponsors yet. I don't. My wife's company sponsors mine.
Sweet.
You know, and that's just more to get more advertising out for her because it's all family run business.
Right.
But you know, neither of us, I think, are at that level yet. But I think there's something to be said about that too. At the same token, you know, where it's kind of, you know, we're still indie, and I think that makes our fans that much cooler. And again, not blowing smoke up the ass. And you know, you mentioned yours. I got to give a shout out to Maxie Mori on Twitter, and which you've probably seen her from. She's tweeted you as well.
Yeah. She's great.
Her and Jennifer Curran she was from Truth and Justice fanfare, and those two outside of my immediate family were probably the biggest influences or pressures, I guess,
right?
Kind of to get me going into my first episode, because they were like, I'm like, yeah, you always have that, nobody's going to listen to it. Right. Why am I going to spend 40 hours or however much, you know, researching this and putting it together and spending all this time if nobody's going to listen to it?
Yeah.
I'm just a moron under my stairs talking to myself, you know. But then when you see that first one, and I was like, whoa, I think I got like 100 episodes or 100 downloads or something.
Yeah.
But to me, a ton, you know. And to me, the other big thing for me was actually my, believe it or not, it was my dad getting into it, who, you know, of all people, like, he the podcast here and there. And, but just hearing him be like, hey, I would change that sound next time, or you know, that story was pretty good. Try this one. And like, even now he's really into it, where he cuts out like newspaper articles where he's like, hey, this might be interesting for your show or something like that.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I really love all that side, and just, you know, immediate family, and, you know, my brother and sister-in-law who don't really listen to podcasts, but they'll listen to my show, you know. Right. So it's stupid stuff like that, where it's still family, but it's kind of unseen fans, so to speak, or
yeah.
So those are the types. Sorry, you may have to edit that out.
Now we're leaving it in. Now we have to leave it in.
I try to cough away from it at least.
Oh my god. Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I think the same thing. Like, it's funny. I have my roommates in college are like, so one of my roommates from college listens all the time. Him and another one of our friends. So it's Jesse and Paige. They listen pretty regularly. I think they used to listen regularly, at least. I know Paige does. And that's phenomenal. That's so cool to me that like they listen, and you know what I mean. It's I didn't have to ask them to. They're just kind of like supportive that way.
Yep.
Paul and Minkus are not supportive that way. Which is fine, but I always joke with him now that I'm like, the other day we were playing Rocket League, and which, by the way, like if anyone that's listening, I don't know, wants to find me on Xbox, my name is Mad Scientist Cogs, I think. That's still awesome. But yeah, I was playing with them, and I was, you know, talking about how excited I was. I got 10,000 downloads, whatever, and I was like, you know, I was like, but you guys weren't, you know. Kind of joking with him. I was like, well, you guys weren't either of those, right? So I can count it as like a real win. And one of my friends was like, Mingus was saying, you know, at this point I have completely like set it up in my mind that this will be something like an economic opportunity that I will regret later in life. He's like, I have now committed to not putting in any help or money to this, so that later on when you're a millionaire, I will regret it. It's like, that's fine, that's whatever. You know, but
the serious question: does Katie listen to it? And not because she has to.
Yes, no, Katie does listen to it. I think it's funny, actually. Katie really likes last podcast on the left and obviously Astonishing Legends.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we didn't. So I guess this will be my how I got into whatever paranormal stuff podcasting. So I grew up like my family is from my dad. My dad wasn't super religious until he got kind of like really sick, and then all of a sudden he was like, you know, Jesus saved me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like before that he wasn't, you know, like that's kind of interesting though. I grew up, my dad worked at a preschool that was part of a church, and so like, you know, we used to play hockey with the priests, and you know, like, and then my mom is from Italy, so my mom's family is very religious and whatever. So like
automatic Catholic.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I kind of was like, I was born with a gold gaudy cross already on me. You know what I mean? I still have baby jewelry that's like all diamond out and whatever. Like it's, you know, it's just like the New York City Italian thing to do. And so
you were Brooklyn, right? Or
Staten Island.
Staten Island.
Yeah, I wish Brooklyn. No, I'm just kidding. It's, you know, Staten Island.
My wife's family's from there, so yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, no, Staten Island's great. I mean, it's you know, it's fun. Jersey Shore or whatever, right? Vinny or whatever his name is from there. Yeah,
no, they're all from New Jersey, right?
Oh yeah. No, Vinny's from Staten Island.
I know.
Our claim to fame, okay? That is our claim to fame. So, them and the New York Dolls are our claims to fame. And Wu-Tang Clan, of course.
The Brooklyn accent's way better though, but anyway.
Oh, dude, yeah. So anyways, so my mom was always into like weird stuff. Like my mom is into like tarot cards and astrology, and you know, like she has all the books, like all the original books on Scientology from like when they were published and stuff. Like my mom's always been into that kind of thing, and so she's always kind of, and like and my family seems to be just into it too. Like my cousin Liz, did a master's thesis, I think, on witchcraft.
Oh,
right?
Wow.
So there was always like a big influence on that kind of interest, right? And then my uncle, it's kind of like a family tradition. Every generation has one male in my family who has done a thesis on Dante's Divine Comedy.
Oh wow.
Like everyone does one, right?
It's like your family tradition.
So my uncle Martin did one. His son, Mikey, did one, and you know, it was like a, you know, a big project or whatever. But so, anyways, so I kind of grew up in that, like, that sort of weird, spooky kind of thing, being part of just how I grew up, and like the stories my mom told from back in Italy and whatever. And so, I got kind of involved in these sorts of like weird podcasts or whatever, pretty much from like, so I always had that interest. I always read books and whatever. I then went to, when I looked for podcasts, I think I found first like conspiracy ones, whatever. And then I listened to the Paracast for a while. I always listened to Coast AM and whatever. And then I think the Paracast became like too kind of like true believery for me, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And it was becoming kind of, I don't know, like not really frustrating. Like I still enjoy it. I still listen to it all the time, but yeah, like there were some things that I was like, okay, like they had a guy on that was talking about how aliens had already infiltrated like everyday society, right?
Well,
and I was like,
Men in Black. I mean,
you know, and afterwards, like afterwards, someone else that was on there was like, "Oh, that's spooky. That's really scary." And I was like, "No, it's not. That's not scary at all. This guy should be put away. You know, it's not scary. There's no evidence." And then I started just trying to find other ones to listen to, and I downloaded an episode of Lore and an episode of Astonishing Legends at the same time. Like, I was like, okay, I'm going to listen to these. I'm going to go for a walk and just like listen to them. And I fell in love with both. And then, started listening to Astonishing Legends regularly, lore regularly, whatever. And then now I'm just kind of, got involved with the arc, and now I'm here, I guess one would say.
Yeah. It's a fun story arc, I guess, for your own personal story, which is kind of cool. No, it's kind of cool and I think it's funny that somebody with such a heavy kind of religious background and more into the magical stuff, for lack of a better term, is now a doctorate chemist. You know what I mean? Like the other extreme.
It's funny, right? I think that from what I've been able to find, and this is just a personal story, I guess, so whatever, take it with a grain of, a huge grain of salt. But pretty much everyone in the sciences that I've talked to about this kind of topic is interested in it. Right? If science is the search for truth, in some ways, I mean, we can go into a whole big thing about that.
That's another podcast. Yeah.
That's a whole other thing. But if science is the search for truth, then this whole side of the human experience that people seem to be having needs to be explained logically, right? And if it, maybe it is all explainable through science, right? I mean, that's kind of the viewpoint I have on most of it for now, right? But it's still interesting to people, and I think for a lot of people, science acts as a means of making sense of scary things.
The same way religion does, same thing,
right? I think it is part of like the same two sides of the same coin. One goes for more of a, I guess, a belief-based view of how to protect oneself from these scary things, and then the other side is you look at it and you learn as much as you can, and then maybe you come to find out, well, it's not that scary, But I think it's I think it's interesting. Like I've said, everyone I've talked to in the sciences has been interested in skeptically looking at these things or learning about them or whatever. It's actually I would say that it's the it's some of the philosophers or people with more of a philosophical bent to them that I've met that have kind of out of hand turned these ideas away.
Mm-hmm. And I went to the University of Scranton for college.
Yeah.
So it was like all Jesuits, right? And as much as you think they're the hardcore kind of Catholics, they're also the ones that get you thinking a little bit outside the box a little bit too.
Yeah, no, they're super philosophical. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, and that's actually part of the reason why I personally like your podcast, because it's kind of similar. It makes you think. You know what I mean? Similar kind of philosophical beat science kind of look at things too, with looking at some of the same topics that I cover and I like listening to from other podcasts too.
Right.
So that's why at least, and I've always told my listeners, I mean, you get into the science pretty heavy, and I like that sometimes, and some of them might be lost during that, but that's okay. I think the overall overarching concepts are okay with it. You know what I mean? They would be okay with it, and they'd be able to follow.
Oh yeah.
I'm a science dork at heart. I was a bio pre-med for the first semester at least, before I figured out that chemistry equals math, which I can't.
That's the problem.
Bio, great. They did great at anatomy and physiology, despite popular belief from some of the. Never mind. That did great in that as well. And then we started going into chemistry, physics, and that was too close to math. And I'm like, all right, which major is the least amount of math? Communications? Yeah. Gotcha. You got it.
Yeah, so. I think it's so funny, right? I was the opposite. I was garbage at chemical engineering until we got to the math. Chemical engineering basically is all math. It's all applied mathematics.
Really. All break down to math. Just put letters in it.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's all applied mathematics. But basically, when you're like an undergraduate student, the first thing they teach you is, like in engineering, you can start from first principles pretty much and just use math to describe every system. Right, that's the whole idea. And all of engineering is based around sort of making chemical engineering, at least, is sort of based around the idea that certain quantities in the universe can be neither created or destroyed, right? Like energy or mass. And those things, therefore, you can look at the beginning of a process and the end of the process, and those things should be equal at the beginning and the end, right? So whatever mass you have coming into a system must be equal to the mass that's coming out of it. Right?
Correct. Yeah.
So
even I can follow that.
Yeah. So that's pretty much all chemical engineering is, right? Is putting, and so it gets a little bit, the three like classical fields of chemical engineering are, you can tell. So throughout this whole process, we've been drinking beer.
Right.
And you can tell that I'm almost having too much beer because I'm talking about chemical engineering.
Not yet.
Not too bad. So,
we've been on the line a lot longer than we've been recording. Remember?
That's true. We have been. So chemical engineering, there's these three classical classes, you take. There's the balances around mass, balances around momentum, which is just a force, and then balances around energy, right? And so from that, you get heat transfer as energy, momentum is fluid dynamics, and then mass is mass transfer and kind of like basic flow processes in chemical engineering. And so all of that, though, comes from the same exact equation. It comes from one very simple equation, which is that whatever goes in has to equal whatever comes out, plus whatever is accumulating in a certain area, right?
Like my bladder right now, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah. So it's really actually quite simple when you break it down. But as an undergraduate, you're given all these very specific equations. You're taught like, okay, this applies to how much flow you get across a pipe if it's, if there's no friction and it's this temperature and you don't have any gases in the mixture and whatever. And that was too complicated for me. I couldn't remember all that crap. What I needed was, this is the math. This is how you do the math, and now you make the decisions for yourself. So once we got to that class, I was good. But before that, I was like, I don't know what's going on.
I'm still convinced with all of your chemical engineering degrees, you could probably find so many shortcuts on home brewing. Like,
dude, it's all chemical engineering, right?
Type of thing,
dude. That's all chemical engineering. I took a class on biomedical. I took a class on biochemical engineering, and we basically just learned how to brew beer. That was like the entire class, right? It was the kinetics on how to get, how much of a certain product is being produced by the bacteria or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's all, I probably could do that, but I have too many hobbies. Katie would kill me.
I will send you a homebrew kit.
Dude, I have way too many hobbies. Please, podcasting is the one that's stuck for the longest. I have in my house right now, I have a set of drums, I have a bunch of guitars, I have a paint set, the podcasting stuff, I got video games out the butt. I mean, I got too much crap going on.
Yeah, I agree with my ADD, if any project lasts longer than 2 months, that's pretty good. So the fact that this podcast is still going.
Yeah, I mean, this is good because it's gone. I think this is good because it's different topics every week.
Exactly. Well, I always said thing. So, and they say that to find your interest levels, right? Look through your Google history. And mine was, YouTube videos, top 10 fill in the blank conspiracy stuff, and how to homebrew tips. So I'm like,
perfect
Pints
mix.
And Puzzles. There we go.
There you go.
So that's where Pints and Puzzles evolved from. At least was I was like, what's my browsing history? Oh, beer and conspiracies. I'm like, and I know that there's, as much as I love homebrewing, and the Mr. Wizard side of it, even though I'm not a chemical engineer or anybody that, but it's surprising because I can do calculations for like ABV in my head now and stuff like that. So I guess math does come in handy later on.
Yeah,
it's just funny the things you apply it to. Where I'm like, oh look, this and this and this, and this will give me this, final gravity and stuff like that. But it's just funny that I'm like, there's not enough there where people will be interested in it, in the whole homebrew thing. So I'm like, well, what if we just drink beer and talk about conspiracies? Oh wait, that's what I do anyway. Okay, good.
Perfect. I'll just put a mic out. It's fine.
Yeah, I'll just talk into the microphone about it. So.
Yeah, actually, it's funny. The original idea for mine was on one of my lab mates or former lab mates now. I actually gave her a shout out last episode, Dinara Andarova, Dr. Dinara. She started, so we were in the lab together, and she's from Kazakhstan originally. And so we'd always have these like long discussions. She lived like a block away from me when we were in grad school. And so I used to give her a ride home, like maybe like once or twice a week or whatever. But on those rides home, we'd always end up talking about something really weird. So we'd talk about like, one time we talked about Jade Helm, right? The Jade Helm conspiracy. One time we talked about the JFK murder and, all just weird stuff, whatever. And one time we both were listening to podcasts and she was like, oh, we should just like put a mic in the car. And I was like, oh, and then I bought a mic and it kind of worked out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's really cool. Anyways, all right, let's do these top 5 lists. Let's get to this. So this whole thing again was we're going to do 5 topics each, like little kind of intros, whatever, and talk about them a little bit that we find really interesting. So we left off with discussing kind of our past and like how we got into podcasting and stuff.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to ask you was, did you have any kind of weird experiences or, not necessarily abduction by aliens? We probably would have talked about that already. But did you have basically any weird shit that's happened to you as a kid or otherwise, in a prior life?
Yeah. So it's interesting, right? So I said, right. So my family was like really religious. And so part of that is a lot of like Roman Catholic iconography, like, like big bloody paintings of Jesus and stuff. Right. Yeah. Right. All that good stuff. And so I had, when I was a kid, I thought, so one thing I always tell this to people whenever they ask this question, I still to this day have extremely vivid dreams. And I seem to remember my dreams more than most people do.
Okay.
So like I'd say I remember like in a given week, right? I probably remember 2 days of dreams, like 2 nights of dreams.
Oh, wow.
Let's say. And they're always really vivid. And a lot of the times the stuff in my dreams like repeats. Right. So that's one thing with this like vividness, I think, is that it always repeats. So it's like,
actually places or like things?
Yeah. So like places and people and things too, right? So one thing I think that's kind of funny is when I was a kid, we used to go to Atlantic City like every summer.
Mm-hmm.
And so for those that don't know what Atlantic City is this kind of this seedy, well, the part that I was in was seedy, but the Jersey Shore itself can be pretty nice some part. But Jersey, anyways.
No, there are some nice parts.
There are some very nice parts,
like Avalon, Seaside.
Yeah. No, it's Ocean City, beautiful, right?
Yeah.
So Atlantic City is like, the big casino place, and that's where Trump kind of like wrecked shit before he got into office. So
still wrecking shit.
Still kind of wrecking shit. So anyways, so his hotels though, the Taj Mahal he built there, that's one of my repeating places in my dreams.
Now here's the question. Is it the legitimate one, like the way it actually is? Or
yeah. No, it's okay.
Like dream version of it.
Well, so there's one hallway that connects, and in my dream it connects to a mall complex.
Okay.
So it's like I'm in it's clearly the motif of the Taj Mahal.
Uh-huh.
But like, there's if I run down a hallway or whatever, I'm in like a room, and then if I go a different way, there's like a, whatever, a game.
Yeah, because I always had those weird dreams growing up too, where it was like, oh, my grandparents' house, but it wasn't actually, it was just the version that always showed up in the dream.
Yeah. So
even now in my 30s,
well,
it's the same thing.
And you know what I think is interesting too, is I think that for a lot of people, like, I think that remembering your dreams is more of a skill than it is something that you naturally do. Right. So it's like, I think I tend to like dwell on, or maybe not dwell is the right word, but I tend to, because I know I have these vivid dreams, and because it seems like not as many people that I talk to remember their dreams, when I wake up, I try to make a point of being like, well, what did I dream?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll almost recall it on purpose. And I think that that's probably a big part of why I remember so many of them. Anyways.
Well, they say you can control them if you start thinking about it before bed and that sort of stuff.
I don't know. That's like Matrix shit. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
Deep level remote viewing. So
this is funny. I had a friend.
Anyway.
Oh, this is too risque for the podcast. Maybe I had a friend in high school who took salvia, which is this like supposedly this thing. It's like a super potent hallucinogenic or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he swore that while he was on this, he had a full life. He was like a World War II pilot, and like he had a wife and everything, and they were in love and all this other shit. And so when he kind of like came out of it, whatever, he was like, "Yo, man, I had a wife. I loved her." And like, it was so strange.
I mean, this could get into some real deep shit that I don't have enough beer down here to get me into right now.
And yeah.
But yeah, there's some, you could get into the whole, your soul stays the same. You just don't remember the past lives.
All that kind of like, whatever, kid on a raft.
I could probably talk to your mom longer about it than you, but
text Dora. She'll have something nice. So anyways,
anyway, ADD moment. Sorry.
So part of this like dreaming thing, whatever, is having really vivid nightmares too. And one of the repeating nightmares I always had was about doppelgangers. And I talk about this on the Trivial Terrors podcast, right? Where I used to always dream that my neighbor Joe was outside my house, nailing boards to the house. So like he was pretending to be my neighbor Joe. It wasn't really him. It was like a ghost trying to get me or something. But anyways, whatever. So part of those vivid dreams, though, became two kind of scary instances where I thought I saw a ghost. And so the first time was, I remember waking up and walking down the hallway of my Uncle Martin's house and seeing a glowing figure with almost like a bird flying towards me, right? And the other time was being in my parents' room and watching TV and then seeing a glowing, like a green glowing thing kind of like float by the door, right?
Now, were these like actual events or were these like after you woke up, right?
So here's the thing. When I was a kid, I got really bad fevers all the time.
Oh, there you go.
And both of those times that like, so I was like, 10 years old and I was like, shit, I thought I saw a ghost 2 times, right? And I asked my mom and she was like, you didn't see a ghost, stupid. Your brain was just boiling.
There was some weird shit. Like I vividly remember my sheets attacking me when I had a fever, like when I was a kid.
That's kind of, I think it's really interesting, right? That so and the reason why, like, I know someone out there probably stopped listening by this point, anyways. But I'm sure.
Our true fans are sticking on to the end.
I'm sure someone is listening and thinking, like, well, how do you know it wasn't really a ghost? How do you know your mom didn't misremember or something, right? And I guess it's because right afterwards I like ran into her room crying because I was scared, right?
Right.
And she was like, "Oh my God, your head is steaming," But so like I think that's part of why I became so skeptical was having these experiences that then after the fact made me reconsider everything that I saw,
You do remember the Shadow People episode of Astonishing Legends, right?
I do, and that's, well, you know what? It's funny. The Kakowski Intruder episode, like, really scared me when I first listened to it.
Late at night to be talking about these.
I know. It's at this point now, listeners, it is 12 o'clock at night. It's 12:18, in fact.
And for the record, I'm in the closet in my basement under.
Right, I'm sitting here all brave in a brightly lit room.
Yeah, that could be the beer helping you.
Well, you know what? So the Kakowski Intruder episode really scared me and struck a nerve because a lot of the same things that they were talking about, like having vivid dreams, remembering them. My grandma swears still that she can see the future in her dreams. She's claimed that it's happened to her 2 or 3 times over her life, right?
Based on what you've told me about your grandma so far, man, I don't doubt that at all.
And the thing that's so interesting is I think it's probably that your brain when you're sleeping. So this is my own kooky theory. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of those things are because a lot of the things that you, I would say, experience in daily life are pretty mundane, right? Mm-hmm. They're things like, I'll probably go to the grocery store over the next week, right?
Yeah.
If I have a dream that I went to the grocery store and I bought Oreos, right? And then I actually go and do it. Did I predict that?
Or is it just part of your routine?
Well, not really, right? It's just routine. And who knows if my dreaming about Oreos didn't make me in waking life be like, oh, I want Oreos, right? And I think in many ways, and I think also you forget the misses, right? You only remember the hits. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I had a dream, and in my dream, I went to the store and I bought, pumpkins and apples and whatever, pasta and stuff and all this other crap, right? But I remember that, I was holding Oreos in my dream, and now I'm holding a bag. Spooky,
So that's the science side. I'll put the tinfoil hat on for you to be the other side, in that, there's the theory that when you fall asleep and are dreaming, then that connects you to the next spiritual plane or whatever, all that crap. And I say that all that crap, but it's a theory out there, right? So then that's why you can see some of these things ahead of time, because it's, it kind of opens up your brain a little bit more than it would in your normal life with all the other external stimulations.
Right. So. I mean, it's an interesting, it's interesting. I always think that if, it's sort of
that said, I guarantee you some of my dreams are never coming true.
No, absolutely. Please. No, no. I mean, I had one that I was, I dunked on Shaq once. I remember having that dream as a kid and being like, hell yeah, cool.
None of mine are podcast safe, even for this podcast. So I'm not repeating any of them.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway.
All right. So let's get into this. Like, we're what, 3 hours into us talking on this Skype call. Probably probably 40 minutes or so into this episode.
That's not as bad as it sounds. I thought it was going to be.
Not as long as it sounds. Well, I don't know for sure how long this has been so far, but let's get into our top 5 here. So give me your top 5 paranormal.
All right. So my number, you want to just go back and forth on this?
Yeah, sure. Let's see. Whatever.
All right. I don't care if you cut that out. So one of mine, and these are in order of order of craziness. So as we go through my list, at least, just add kind of another layer of heavy duty tinfoil as we go through here, or have another beer, so it makes more sense. So the first one, and for Pints and Puzzles purposes at least, this is these are ones that either are too. No, I'm gonna say they're all too batshit crazy to do on my show at this point, with the exception of the first one. That just I tried to do it for enough for the show. It just didn't have enough kind of substance to it. So the first one is the Vatican chronovisor. I don't know. Have you heard of this one yet?
I've never heard of this one before.
So this one was, and again, I have my Wikipedia page open for this, which I used to have a way bigger bias against that until Astonishing Legends brought up some good points about when was the last time your Encyclopedia Britannica was edited, So,
yeah, seriously.
There is something to be said for that. Yeah. But that said, take this for a grain of salt here. But basically there was a priest back in he lived from 1925 to 1994. He was an Italian priest and scientist that came up with this, basically a television that could tap into past waves, basically, and see images from past time frames.
So now we're getting into the science.
Yeah, so this is why I brought it up for you, because he was a Roman Catholic priest. He's Italian, so maybe your Nona knows him. But he used he had a cabinet with a large cathode ray tube, which is basically a large TV, old school TV. And then it had a bunch of buttons, levers, and all sorts of crap on it that would pick up it says it would pick up and decode the past electromagnetic radiation left behind from past events. It could also pick up the audio component emitted by those same events. So it could always go backwards, but it couldn't go forward. And allegedly, this guy says that he witnessed, amongst other scenes, performance in Rome of the Lost Tragedy. Let's see. Sorry, I really should have done my research beforehand here. Whatever. It's unscripted. Get over it.
It's fine. It's okay.
So
it's interesting.
Anyway, he saw a bunch of weird shit. I don't know. Allegedly there was a photo of Christ himself, which is of course later debunked, but I still like the story anyway. Yeah. I still like the story anyway. And of course, where did this chronovisor go afterwards? It is in the secret Vatican archives where everything else is.
So I really like the idea of the secret Vatican archives personally. Yep. I always find that fascinating because they probably do have, it's not probable. They do have huge wealth of knowledge, right? So we lost as a cult, like as a people, as a race of people, as the human race, right? We lost, a huge amount of built up knowledge when the library at Alexandria was burned down, right? And so, a lot of our science and our culture, our philosophy too, wouldn't exist today or we wouldn't know as much about it if it wasn't for, the Muslim world, keeping some of our knowledge, right? Or holding on to it during the Middle Ages, right? So I think it's really fascinating to think about the stuff. Maybe so, and I don't necessarily think that they're keeping it because they want to hide it or something. I think though that it's just a matter of there's so much stuff that who knows what they really have there,
Yeah, there's always you always have speculation about what you can't see, right? So
yeah, exactly.
That's part of most conspiracy theories, let alone this one specifically. But I also think that some of the stuff, there's always science, and you know this as a scientist. There's always science that's ahead of its time, or there's a science that we don't understand at our current time.
Right?
Like how they thought the Earth revolved around the sun back in the day. Some people nowadays still think that, but for the most part, that's another.
Well, the sun revolves around the Earth, yeah.
Yeah, but whichever way it goes. Yeah, you're right. I was going to say there are
some people that think that. Most people think that. Are you admitting something to me here?
I'm admitting I've had too many beers. No.
There we go. So okay. I you know what I think, but here's the problem with that, right? Is like with science that's ahead of its time, it is never in a vacuum. This is the problem that I think a lot of people when they think about science being the same as like faith, right? Science has good science has a history that you can go back to the very beginning and see how the ideas developed. And there are dead ends and stuff, right? So even in my field, right? You go from, say, thinking that clays and clay materials would be really useful for catalysis. And then we found out, no, clays are pretty bad at this. So then we moved on to another type of rock. We moved on to silica, or zeolites, rather. And then zeolites are now today kind of missing the mark on a lot of things. So now we're moving on to metal organic frameworks. But along the way, there's that history of like thrown away ideas, or maybe not thrown away, but ideas that kind of didn't pan out.
Yeah.
And the problem with a lot of these fantastical, like, the US government has built a UFO or whatever, right? Is there would be so much other science or other knowledge around that has to be built up, right? That it would be impossible to hide it all.
Who's to say that that knowledge wasn't suppressed too. You know what I mean? Because they found the connection.
But that's the thing, right? Is
again, I'm playing tinfoil hat guy.
I know.
In our list here.
Right, I understand. I think it's. So, anyways, I think there's something to be said for that as well. Maybe it's all hidden, but again, a lot of machines, like a lot of the things that we think of as being in the future are happening right now, right? The technology for quantum computing is being developed in labs as we speak.
Correct.
So when we come up with a quantum computer, and by that I mean a computer that can hold data and memory in quantum mechanical properties as opposed to the the electrons being present or not present in a lattice or whatever, right? When we can start to store data on a quantum scale as opposed to on the scale of, I mean, electrons are quantum, but atomic scales we do now, things are going to, that's going to seem to come out of nowhere, but it didn't. That's happening right now. There are labs doing that right now, So I always wonder, like with this, and that's the problem I think with this chronovisor thing, at least, is it would almost be more palatable to me if it did look forward and backwards, if it could look at both.
Well, see, I've always had this theory that we can only go backwards. I don't think we can go forward in time. If there's time travel at all, I think we can only go backwards.
See, but that assumes that
this could get way too deep for what we're talking about.
But so that assumes that our line of history is the primary one.
Correct.
Right?
Right.
That assumes that, like, we, and that's the problem with mankind generally. Like, we always think that we're the real ones, right? We're the good guys. We're not the bad guys in history.
Well, the theory is we would go back on this timeline, right? And this gets back to, for anybody that's still listening, even if we go dumb it down to all the way to Back to the Future terms, you know what I mean? How Doc showed, when you went back and did this, then you split the time frame, and then this is where I always go back to, you split it, and now Biff is the Vegas Donald Trump or whatever he is, in Back to the Future 2, which was Donald the worst. Trump. Yeah, he really was, right?
He really is Donald Trump.
Even though Back to the Future 2 was the worst fucking movie in the series, but it was horrible. But that said, the concept, right, where if you go back, you have to make sure that you go back and not screw with stuff. But to me, the concept sounded, in my non-scientific brain, sounded like it made sense. Something happens, the energy gets released, right? If we could figure out a way to go back and find that old energy and tap into it and translate it, then we should be able to see it.
So
right?
here's the problem, though, right? We talked earlier about how energy is one of those things that's conserved, right?
Right.
So it comes in and it goes out. That energy, that past energy, if it's still around today in the form that it was back then, that means it's being taken out of the system somehow.
Oh, when we tap into it.
Right? No, well, not even that, right? That means that it's being stored in its old way. Like, okay, let's take the analogy of a glass of water or a, like, okay, you got a big tank of water, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have water flowing in, you have water flowing out, and you want to be able to tell what water molecule was there. Like, you want to be able to tell where that water molecule was at a certain time, or be able to tell. This analogy has fallen apart. Hold on. Okay.
That's okay. No.
Here's
no. For asking the question, but I just was like, wait.
No. Here's the problem, right?
Go back.
It's
rewind.
It's your okay. If time flows like water, right? We can think of, if we have a pipe system, we have water flowing into a tank. It fills up the tank, and then eventually it'll come out, right?
Okay.
That's the way energy kind of works in systems. Is it comes in and it can accumulate in a system, and then it can go out to do other things, right? But all the energy in the universe is being used to power something else. Energy doesn't just sit someplace, right? It's being used for things. So think of it this way: if we're able to see the imprint on past energy, or look
Right.
at the past through the imprint on the energy of the past, that assumes either that energy always has some kind of, first off, energy. That's such a stupid, I hate when people use energy for paranormal things. Energy doesn't mean anything.
All right, they used electromagnetic radiation.
Okay,
sound waves.
So let's say electromagnetic radiation, right? That assumes that electromagnetic radiation either retains all of its past memories that it will ever have, right? Which means that information is being stored inside of it somehow, or it means that electromagnetic radiation has stayed in its state that it was in at that past point. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. So my non-science brain is translating this as, you're saying that if it has like a code, the assassination of JFK has a code of 3619, then that has to say 3619 the whole time
forever
in order to be translated. But you're saying when it gets released out into wherever it goes, the space or universe, then that could be translated to like 3629 or 4629. You get mixed up then.
It's almost like this. It's almost like this, right? When you're powering a car, you're burning fuel to make energy, and then that energy is being used to move the car forward, right?
Right.
Where does that energy go after it pushes the car forward? So the car's moving forward with some momentum, and that energy gets dissipated over time as friction in the wheels and the drag from the air and whatever, right?
Okay.
After that energy gets dissipated, is there any way to tell that friction, or like that friction gets released, whatever, so that energy gets released into the air as heat, right?
Right. How do you translate the friction and the drag into the car moving?
Yeah,
and the type of car. And the model of the car.
Exactly.
Yeah, I got you.
That energy is a part of a bigger process, and there's no way to pick out at what point in the process it was doing work, or, you know what I mean?
But what's to say that different cars, makes and models don't give off slightly different, you know what I mean? Slightly different friction or whatever the case may be.
Right, but the problem is
you could piece it back together.
If we go back to that stupid analogy I tried to make with water, right? Let's say some of the water I'm drinking right now, some of the water in the ice in my cup right now, a molecule of that water might have been some of the water that Jesus turned into wine.
Right.
Right?
Right.
How would I know?
So what's to say they didn't invent a machine that could look at that ice cube or that molecule of water and determine that?
The problem is that
this might be way too much to keep in, by the way.
All I'm saying, listen.
But I like the discussion either way.
Final word on this, in my opinion at least, is there's nothing about electromagnetic radiation that suggests we call it a hysteresis, any kind of effective history on it, right?
I got you.
So it's always being transferred and moved about. Energy is always being transferred and moved. And there's nothing about the energy that's going into moving a car that's any different than the energy that's being used to move a plane, or the energy that's being used to heat up the surface of the road or something. It's all the same kind of, it's the same kind of thing. It's all in some ways, used to power.
So those energy particles can't be used as like a photograph or like a Polaroid.
So that's the thing. There's no particle of energy.
I gotcha.
There's no particle. Like, energy is, if I'm like in the car example, right? The energy that's present in the molecules of the gas, that is being broken up, and then heat is being released, right? That heat is being used to pressurize gas, and then the gas molecules themselves, like hitting the side of the piston, those are what's giving the pressure. It's actual molecules hitting a thing and then losing momentum.
Okay, I got you. So it's basically it's too finite to make a picture out of.
Like, yeah, there's nothing.
I'm trying to dumb it down.
No, it's fine.
For me, right?
There's nothing in there that is
identifiable.
Yeah,
I got you.
Yeah.
All right. So basically, everything from when you said from that last section that you did is perfect. No, if you're going back to edit, right?
I think we should just leave it all in. I don't
know. I might be. We may have lost a lot of people during that time.
I don't know. You think?
Although
so?
If they're still sticking on this long.
Yeah, no, we're fine. We're good. Okay. All right. Listen, I think this will be fun to just put out as like a full thing. You know what I mean?
Just as is.
Yeah, totally. That's what I do. That's what we do with the roundtables. I think they come out pretty good. Okay, so
but I'm not Marie.
Okay. So your first was the Vatican Chronovisor. So my first one is Entombed Animals.
Ooh, tell me about it.
So I remember reading as a kid a book called Mysteries of the Unexplained that I bring up in like every single episode, I feel like. But in the book there was this picture of a toad who was sitting in a block of coal carbon. Jeez, you can tell that I've been in science too long.
Same difference.
So it's in coal, and it had claimed in the book that people were finding frogs and newts and stuff and like salamanders and whatever encased in coal, and that this was proof of hell, basically. Ooh. Right? This was proof of animals being damned. Like, I don't know what that little toad ever did to anybody, but evidently, the devil was like, "Nah, toad, you're it."
Or is it humans being put into toad
I don't know.
form
that kind of it really scared me, and I remember being a kid and being like, "Well, what going on there?"
I don't want to be a toad in stone.
Right? I'll be good, please, Santa.
I'll go clean my room.
So the thing that I find interesting is I've since learned more about it and whatever. And so here's a quote. This is from Wikipedia again. But so during the 1820s, English geologist William Buckland conducted an experiment to see how long a toad could remain alive while encased in stone. He placed toads of different sizes and ages into carved chambers within limestone and sandstone blocks, then buried the blocks in his garden. A year later, he dug up the blocks and found that most of the toads were dead and decayed. A few toads that had been in the limestone, which did contain small pores, were still living. So they lived. Some of the toads did live, but it's because it's limestone, so it's porous. But here's the thing that's kind of crazy. However, Buckland found them all dead after reburying them.
Okay.
So he took them out. He was alive, like, "Oh, they're alive." He put them back in the fucking ground for another year.
So what do you think? What do you think happened between the two?
I think William Buckland needed to go see a therapist. That's what I think, frankly. So, that's the interesting thing, right? So, what's kind of funny is that in Nature, in the journal Nature in 1910, they actually wrote a story on this, and they basically just said that people are mistaking toads from coming out of, like, they're seeing a toad in a quarry and being like, it must have come from the stone.
It's like, no, it just jumped in the quarry.
Right. You know what I mean? That's kind of their explanation. What I think is really interesting is, listen, number one, I think probably a lot of people are being mistaken, and a lot of times people were using this as tourist attractions, right? So it was like, come see the toad in the stone, right? Or, come to the amazing quarry where we found the toad. It was sold as this kind of thing. But I think in some weird cases, maybe, I think it's similar to a frog getting frozen or something, right? They can survive by becoming quiescent. They can they can lower their metabolism so much that they could survive a lot of stuff. They don't have to...
David Blaine, right? Yeah. Same thing.
like toads, frogs, and amphibians and stuff don't have to eat for a while if they go into like, it's like hibernation, basically.
I gotcha.
But I just remember being so affected by that. Another weird, like, it wasn't just toads. They found all kinds of stuff, and this book that I had bought at Barnes and Noble, the same place where I bought my books for school, was telling me that it had happened. And I was like, damn, that must be real, you know?
Gotta be true.
Yeah, exactly. So,
it is kind of amazing how many of these, even the stuff that I research for my show occasionally and stuff, it's amazing how many things are just touristy or for tourism. You know?
Yeah.
How you find out later on, like, oh, there may have been a story there, but the town's perpetuating it either way. You know?
Exactly. Yeah. You know, I think it's, you know, that's always something that's very always very touchy on these topics, right? Is who is making money off?
Right. Yeah.
You know,
it goes back to follow the money. You know,
exactly. Yeah.
Who's benefiting ultimately from this story? Is it the scientist? Is it the journal? Is it the town? Is it, you know,
right,
whatever? Is it the frog? No,
it's definitely not the frog. That frog is
definitely
screwed,
not the frog.
Yo. All right. What's your number 2?
All right. Well, first of all, we got to do a Pints and Puzzles plug real fast.
Ooh.
For Sierra Nevada German style IPA. That's my next one. That'll be coming up in our second bonus episode, by the way.
Nice.
All right. Shameless plug over. And I spilled beer. Hold on.
All right. While TJ's doing that, I'm drinking Lagavulin Scotch. Thanks to Rich Malloy for providing the scotch. I'm still drinking the same bottle because it's so nice that I don't want to drink it all in one. Well, I couldn't possibly drink it all in one sitting anyways. That'd be insane.
I'd be more than happy to help you.
Oh, Jesus.
Next time I'm in New Hampshire.
Be very serious. Yeah. Oh, man.
The other thing, it's kind of funny as a side note. My one buddy has a bottle of Crown, of all things, that is from 2002, 2001, I think. And, you know, Crown's not super fancy, but we refuse to open this.
It's been aged for a long time now. Yeah.
And we just haven't. I think he got it on his 21st birthday, and we're just like, no, let's not open it.
Just leave it.
Like, and no occasion, like, we've both been married. I've had kids.
Oh,
like,
wow.
They're about to adopt kids, you know?
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. That's so
crazy.
interesting.
It's crazy shit. And we still haven't found an occasion special enough to open it.
Wow.
I'm like, dude, you are getting buried with that bottle.
I was going to say, seriously, someone's going to have to go first before something happens. Damn, dude.
Then we'll light you on fire with it.
Oh, wow.
It'll probably be so high proof. Anyway, speaking of burials, let's go into my second topic here.
Yeah.
All right. So this one has no Wikipedia page, even though I'm sure there probably is one out there. But this is one that has been in my crazy ass brain for a little while. That Jesus was a human alien hybrid. All right. Now, before you guys turn off the podcast, hold on. bear with me here. Don't think of Alien as little green man, right? Like,
Mulder, I'm unhappy, Mulder.
No, think of Alien as more advanced human species, right? Like from, and this gets into probably a whole nother topic, which we weren't planning on getting into, but the alien species. But think of him more as like a Nordic alien or something that, I guess that wouldn't make sense because he was Middle Eastern, but
No.
similar concept, right? But think about it, right? If he did all these crazy things that the Bible, and I'll caveat, I was raised Roman Catholic. I am no longer a practicing Catholic, despite getting all of my children baptized, but no longer a practicing Catholic. However, I do have spiritual beliefs, just not tied to any specific religion right now. But that all said, I get the Jesus background and the history behind it. And I think that, you know, some of those miracles that he performed, you know, maybe it's just a more advanced way of looking at things. You know, maybe he really did turn water into wine. It could be an analogy, or maybe he really did do that. You know
what I actually think is a really interesting. Have you played Assassin's Creed?
I have not.
So Assassins, spoilers for people listening. Although I got into Assassin's Creed extremely late. Like I only just beat the first one, like maybe like 3 weeks ago when I was in Minnesota. Okay. But the whole premise of the game is that there's been like a historical fight between the Knights Templar and this group of assassins, and what it centers around are these they're called pieces of Eden. And the idea is that the Earth was originally colonized by a group of sort of like super intelligent beings that they then created, using their knowledge of genetics, a slave species, which was humans, Homo sapiens, and then also they created a warrior species, which was Neanderthals. And so those advanced peoples became viewed as gods because they were so advanced, right? But it was all technology. And so the whole premise of the game is that all of these like historically important people were really Templars or assassins fighting over these pieces of Eden, which were these pieces of technology that these ancient gods used to control humans, right? And so there's a whole backstory where it's like Adam and Eve were actually a crossbreed between humans and the gods. And so when she used the apple, what the apple of Eden actually is it's a tool to control people's minds.
And just change God into alien. It's the same concept.
Well,
right?
yeah. And so one of the things on that though is that was that Jesus had in the game they turned the Shroud of Turin they turned the shroud into a piece of Eden, basically. And so they claimed that this was one that could heal people or bring people back from the dead. And then also Jesus controlled an apple of Eden, so he could like basically it makes people see what the person holding the apple wants them to see.
Oh, like a crystal ball type of thing.
Kind of. So it's like he didn't really change wine into or water into wine. Instead, he just planted that image into people's minds around him. Right. But I think but it's such a
well, here's the thing, like, so, and this is going to get me in trouble with some Catholics out there, but there's the story of, or the concept, right, is there in a lot of religions that even predate Christianity too.
Yeah.
And I know you've talked about this before too on, I think on your podcast, where these stories have predated it, so if the concept is there, right, why couldn't there have just been different quote unquote, generations of this more advanced species, whatever you want to call it, that just had different names, and we're just keeping an eye on, like you said, the species they created,
So this is one. So actually one of my first, I remember one of the first books I read on kind of like, besides that, that kind of like encyclopedia one from Reader's Digest that I got for $5. The first like real serious book on this topic that I read was Chariots of the Gods by Eric von Daniken, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the one that's always, Ancient Aliens one. That's the one that kind of posits Ancient Aliens as a thing. And I remember being really, again, I was like 12, but I remember being very impressed with that theory, right? I remember being like, damn, like we don't really know that much about prehistory.
Mm-hmm.
But it turns out we know a shitload about prehistory. Like we know so much more than I thought we did about prehistory as a 12-year-old, right? And I, so let me say, there is no way for us to say for certain that there was not some like super advanced species living on the earth while we were still, basically chimpanzees, right? There's no way to say that with a certainty didn't happen, but there is no evidence to suggest that that's true.
I agree. I was just throwing it out there. And
no, but like,
what if we just think of religion, just put different names on the same concept, right? Like Holy Spirit is just like, basically the special, not special powers, because that makes it sound way too science fiction for something that I'm not trying to pass off as such. But like, Jesus' body rose from the dead. The whole everything in the Catholic, specifically because that's what I grew up with.
Yeah,
religion could be tied to this kind of theory.
That's the thing that's so fascinating, though, right? Is that we could make any number of completely unprovable stories, right? That would fit that. So, okay, You know, I mean, there's just so many. I mean, I think part of the funny one that fits in with that though too is that Bigfoot is actually so that whole idea has been put out there on Ancient Aliens a couple times actually. And I watch Ancient Aliens like it's my job. Even though it makes me so mad sometimes. But one of my favorite ideas that they posit on there that I think is so silly is that Bigfoot is a leftover human, like basically when we had, advanced technology before or whatever, that Bigfoot was created as like a warrior race. So the same idea as Assassin's Creed, basically,
Okay.
But yeah,
and that's where you get the whole Bigfoot can teleport and
exactly,
and
yeah,
cross dimensions,
exactly.
And all that. Okay.
I think that's really, I like that one. I like that one a lot. I think that one's really good.
I actually think that personally, I think Bigfoot's a whole nother ball game. I think it's just a leftover kind of dinosauric species,
Man, I'm not sure. I love Bigfoot stories. I actually had a really interesting. I don't know if this guy's listening. I had a really good haircut at Fella's Hair Salon in St. Paul, Minnesota, when I was there. And the guy that did my haircut and he gave me a beer, and I ended up drinking beer while they were cutting my hair, and we were talking.
That's
and whatever.
Awesome.
It was awesome, man. I'm definitely going back. But the guy that was cutting my hair was telling me that he had actually had a couple of encounters with Bigfoot in the wild. And because he's a avid hunter and whatever. And I always wish I had something like that, it'd be so fascinating. I mean, but I don't know if Bigfoot exists or not. I can tell you that he's probably not an alien. He's probably not I don't think he's a skinwalker or anything.
Yeah.
I think I think like you think, if he's anything, he's
down the rabbit hole we go.
Right. I think if he's anything, he's probably a maybe a leftover thing, or just an animal we haven't really categorized. Or I really like the idea that it was a link between grizzly bears and polar bears.
Oh, I just read about that so spoiler alert, but not really. One of my future episode is going to be on Alaska. I have two
nice.
coming up. One's more terrestrial, I guess, and one's more fringy. But yeah, and I was reading, I was like, oh well, I wanted to do some research on grizzly bears and polar bears, sort of related to the episode, but also because it was just interesting.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh yeah, they just came up with a grizzly bear polar bear hybrid or something.
Yeah, they actually
hunter shot it. Of course, yeah. I'm like, of course, everything good that we come up with, we always have to fucking kill.
Oh my god,
we don't understand it.
Hold on, have you seen that stupid fucking show, Hunting Bigfoot or Killing Bigfoot or whatever?
If they ever kill a Bigfoot, I'm gonna be really pissed.
Dude, it's like a bunch of these guys, like they're gonna shoot each other. Someone's gonna get shot in the ass, and then I think it's I don't know if it's Animal Planet or if it's Discovery or something. Whoever it is, I hope they get sued when they shoot themselves in the butt. All right, so that's your number 2. So
yep.
My number 2 is. So mine kind of hit a peak of scariness, and then they get silly again. So, really scary for me. Like you said, I also was raised Roman Catholic. I'm not religious anymore. I do love the history and the stories and everything, and I find the Roman Catholicism fascinating, but I don't personally have much faith as an adult person today. But when I was a kid, I was super into it, partly because I was terrified. And one of the things that terrified me was exorcism.
Ooh.
And
yeah, me too.
One particular case I remember scaring me really bad, because not only, and it almost is interesting, it wasn't the part about getting infested with demons or whatever was scary. But actually hearing about what happened to her is still really freaking scary. Right? So I'm talking about Annalise Michel.
Ooh.
So first off, I think it's kind of interesting. I'd want to go over the signs of demonic invasion, right? So these are the signs of demonic invasion, and you you tell me what you think about these, okay?
All right.
There are 14 major signs, right? And first off, exorcism in the modern church is really rare. It has to be approved by a bishop, which is a pretty high up in the church hierarchy. It's
hard to get that approved now, right?
I think it even needs to be approved by a cardinal, maybe. So in the Catholic Church, geez. It goes pope, then cardinal, then bishop, then priest, basically. So
Monsignor too.
Right. So Monsignor is like a super priest.
That was just for my grandma.
So
who will never?
Hey, that was good, dude. So okay, so the signs of an exorcism are 1, loss or lack of appetite. 2, cutting, scratching, and biting of skin. 3, a cold feeling in the room. 4, unnatural bodily postures and changes in the person's face and body. 5, the possessed losing control of their normal personality and entering into frenzy or rage and or attacking others. 6, change in the person's voice. 7, supernatural.
What are you talking about?
No! Supernatural physical strength, not subject to the person's build or age. 8, speaking or understanding another language which they have never learned before. 9, knowledge of things that are distant or hidden. 10, prediction of future events, sometimes through dreams. 11, levitating and moving of objects or things. 12 is expelling of objects or things. 13 is intense hatred and violent reaction towards all religious objects or items. And 14 is antipathy towards entering a church, speaking Jesus' name, or hearing scripture. Now, a couple of those seem pretty serious.
Yeah, I have really mixed feelings. So, so obviously, right, there's a lot of mental health disorders that could fall under a lot of these.
Yeah.
A lot of them, not all of them, though. But I'll caveat any discussion we're going to have on any rational discussion we're going to have on this.
Yeah.
That I do believe this does exist. I think it's probably more rare than what people have come up with. But there are some cases out there. I mean, just like when you did your episode on spontaneous human combustion.
Yeah.
You know, how you're like, generally speaking, this is bullshit. But here's a couple weird cases.
Right, here's a weird one.
That might possibly fall into that category. I think the same thing applies here. And I'll be really honest, and I told you this, in our pre-show, but I'll be honest that I will never do anything shadow people, demonic possession crap on my show because it scares the crap out of me.
So yeah. So listen, we're not going to get too serious.
Yeah, I know.
Here's the thing. So here's the thing that I find fascinating, though, right? So I have two things basically I wanted to bring up with this.
Yep.
Some of these things seem really like they'd be very hard to fake, right? Like supernatural strength or speaking or understanding another language. Levitation. So expelling of objects is one that's particularly crazy because sometimes it can be things like nails or a whole cross or something.
Yeah, that's what they like shoot the random shit out of the room, right?
That they'll they'll vomit it up.
Oh.
But here's the thing, right? People do crazy shit all the time to their bodies, right? I've seen some stuff on Reddit, TJ, that a normal person should not see. All right?
Yeah,
and,
I don't go on.
Have you ever looked up the Albert Fish?
Yeah. The guy who could swallow like anything.
So no.
No.
This
right?
is okay. Albert Fish was a serial killer.
Oh, other guy. Sorry.
Who had picarism, which is the sexual satisfaction of being stabbed or stabbing people.
Cut out whatever crazy shit I said then.
When they killed him, I think it's hilarious. When they killed him, or when they killed him, when he was executed, I believe. But when they looked at his body afterwards and they X-rayed him, I think they X-rayed him. I think I'm thinking something else. But in his body, they found something like 30 clothespins in like his buttocks that he had stabbed himself with.
Oh.
And pins is a really common one you get in exorcism.
Was he the one that swallowed the maybe I'm getting my serial killers mixed up. Was he the one that swallowed the fingertips or something too?
Yeah, he had a
or something crazy like that.
He was pretty terrifying. Like I find serial killers pretty interesting.
Me too.
He's a pretty scary one. But anyways, I think though that so a lot of those seem pretty nuts at first, and some of them seem impossible, like speaking and or understanding a language you've never heard, levitation, whatever. But some of them are like a cold feeling in the room, like, come on. You know, cutting or scratching the skin, loss of appetite, having an abnormal personality, you know, intense hatred and violent reaction towards all religious objects or items. Like, you know, some of these are so weak that it's like, all right, you know, but anyways, and
some of it could be that, the bias thing a little bit too, you know?
Yes, absolutely.
Or if you already have something imbalanced anyway,
like listen,
and then you have a priest come in telling you like,
well, here's the
Satan
thing
is in you.
Here's the thing I think is fascinating. You never think to go to a priest if you're sure that the priest can't help.
Right. Correct.
It's never like in movies where the person is like, oh, you know, we've tried every doctor in the world and now we're going to priest. It's always, well, you know, we're pretty religious, but we don't go to church that often, but then something spooky happened and we decided to go, you know? It's always that the people have already had a pretty significant inclusion of religion in their lives. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyways, the thing that I think is so scary with Annalise Mischel is how she died.
Ooh,
right?
Tell me about it.
So they eventually said, okay, she was getting mental help from a therapist, and she was actually hospitalized for various things before she was, you know, started seeing this exorcist. And so the priest that actually did it with her, you know, did the exorcism with her, ended up performing something like 67 exorcisms.
Wow.
Her. So exorcism isn't a quick thing either. It goes on for months or years sometimes, right? So he did 67 exorcism sessions, 1 or 2 each week, lasting up to 4 hours over a 10-month period. Right?
Yeah. And this is where I get into that category of, like, yeah, there's mental disorders or personality disorders.
Yeah.
And then there's some just really crazy shit.
Well,
that
and then
explain,
then listen to this, right? So she ended up dying. At the time of her death, she weighed 68 pounds. She had both of her knees were broken from kneeling and praying so often.
Ooh.
She died from malnutrition and dehydration, basically. And she was in semi-starvation for like an entire year.
Ugh.
It's crazy. So they ended up the priest and her mother were prosecuted for negligent homicide.
Well, I mean, at that point, you can kind of see that argument, but
yeah. So after that they stopped. That's part of the reason why exorcisms became so hard to get approved, right? But the other thing that I think is so fascinating with what you said earlier, right, was you said that you think that these things, and I don't mean to be, you know, we're buddies, so I'm not attacking you.
Yeah, no.
But,
I don't think
no, of course not. But you know, so
for the listeners,
right? So you stated that you believe that these things have happened, right?
In some cases,
some cases, but you don't have particular faith.
I am spiritual, just not tied to any organized religion.
Okay. So that's
put it that way.
right. So that's the thing. That's the part that I find so interesting, though, is
I find it interesting too, actually.
How do you like? People will often say that to me too, where they'll be like, "Well, I believe in ghosts, but I'm not religious," right? And I often wonder, well, how? Right?
Well,
so ghosts, I guess, is easier, but believing in demons, right?
I think there can be negative energy out there.
I think that there can be too, but
spirits or whatever you want to call it.
I guess I wonder then, like, where do you draw the line, right? Is if you believe in possession or something, right? And then a priest comes and like if there are cases of this that are real, and we look to see which ones seem to be cured by certain religious rites, does that suggest that religion is correct?
I think that suggests that to me at least, that suggests that a more powerful, positive energy took over a slightly less powerful negative energy.
So I think that's
not
probably
saying I want any negative energy.
No. I understand.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the most that's probably the most rational way to look at it is, well, I don't know which is right, but it seems to me that if there is negative energy and someone is cured somehow, maybe it's positive energy, right? I mean, it's some kind of positive force.
I mean, from a science side, right? There's stuff you can see and stuff you can't see, right? The dark matter, light matter type of stuff,
Yeah, but there's everything you can measure.
Right. but I think, there's some argument too whether you can measure positive or negative energy too, but that's a whole nother topic that I do not have a Wikipedia page open for.
Right. I guess what I'm saying is I think it's very interesting in those cases where, like, I think it's a two-edged sword, right? Someone who is a true believer can use those cases to say, well, it was proof,
absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
But and I kind of think it's very fascinating too when people they'll invoke like Native American spirits or something, right? They'll be like, oh, I've seen a ghost, or my house is haunted by Native American spirits, and so we need a shaman to come and cleanse the house or something, right?
The Karkowski intruder too.
Well, but so that's what I think is so fascinating, right? Is that seems to suggest to me, at least, if that's true, that we should all be, going back to whatever religion they had, because clearly it's working somehow. Do you know what I mean?
I think in my head, it's just all sort of tied in together.
No,
it's just different ways of saying similar, not the same, but similar concepts and stories.
Listen, I'm playing. I have my Sherlock Holmes hat on here. Okay, so that's my number 2. So let's go number 3. Let's hear it.
All right. Oh yeah, you'll love this one, especially you. We have colonized all the planets.
Yes.
Now, as the caveat of this comes back from my abovetopsecret.com days, back when that website was really interesting. It's gotten a little shitty over the years, to be honest, because it's CIA run now. But anyway,
anyway, just gonna throw that one in there.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah,
you can edit that out, or at least bleep out the agencies.
No, we're fine.
They'll
bleep it out themselves.
They'll be defunded in a couple weeks anyway.
Themselves. It's okay. Yeah, they'll be defunded. We just gotta wait for the end of the deep state or whatever the hell he says. Yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Anyway. There we go. There's our religion for the show. But yeah, so the theory is from there was a poster, for lack of a better term, on there, conspiracy theorist back in the day called John Lear. And yes, allegedly his dad was the guy who invented the Lear jet. So that was his claim to fame and why he knows what he was talking about, allegedly. And his thing was there was some. So my general philosophy on conspiracy theorists is or conspiracy theories is 80% of it's complete bullshit. About maybe 5% is just way too crazy to even think about, like David Icke. Reptilian aliens.
Love reptilians. Love them.
Maybe 5 to 10% of that is that kind of stuff that's just too far out there where I can't even wrap my head around it to even try to give it enough energy to even try to rationally research it. And then the other 10% is this is stuff that's hidden in there that we have to kind of look at, And so the point of that little tangent was John Lear also talked about the soul catchers being on the moon, and that's where it catches our souls when we die and then shoots us back somewhere else and all that crap. So he had some crazy shit out there. But one of the interesting things I remember him talking about was that we've basically planet jumped and colonized, or at least have some kind of military outpost on each planet in our immediate solar system. And that was also back when Pluto was still considered a planet. So that was the theory. So
now we just have a colony on a cold rock planetoid, or whatever the hell they're calling it. Yeah.
But I mean, there's always been a theory that there's a military base on the moon anyway.
Nazi moon base.
And or the Air Force, is always has their own kind of astronaut corps or whatever that is. And I do, and for the record, I mean, the part of this whole kind of tinfoil hat side that I do believe is that the government does have technology that's more advanced than what the public is shown.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is absolutely true. As far as colonizing everything, I'm not 100% sure, but let's throw it out there for the scientist who deals with atmospheric
So
ice for a living.
So that's the funny thing, right? We can't even get our own stupid atmosphere in line. I don't know how the hell we deal with colonizing another planet. So I think it's really, it's funny because that kind of like uses, if we were going to go out into space, that's how we would probably do it at first, right? We would colonize the nearest planet and set up a station and then fly there and load it up with supplies and whatever, get that settled, then move on to the next station from there, right? So that part of it to me is okay, I guess. I don't really know. It's funny actually. I have a really good listener who's actually an I want to say astrophysicist.
Oh, wow.
I hope I'm not lumping her in with the wrong field. But she's actually a grad student in Georgia, I think, right now. So she's great. Her name escapes me right now. But anyways, so hold on a second. I'm gonna look so I can get it right. So on Twitter, she is Dicey Ann Sailor. And so she is a astronomy PhD candidate right now. So astronomy. So she would know more about this than I would, honestly. So I hope I'm not messing up the space stuff here too hard. But I'm like, the problem with all these things, and this was actually really well done in The Martian, I think, is if you set up a colony on another planet, it needs, again, mass cannot be created or destroyed. In space, getting energy isn't really a problem because we can use solar panels and crap, right? But the problem is getting oxygen, water, and food.
Well, I mean, his theory went even further to say that there was already a habitable atmosphere on all these planets.
All right,
and that was a conspiracy saying that that NASA has told us, like, no, Venus is too hot, we can't live on that, like that, or it's all poisonous mercury gas or whatever.
Oh my God!
Gas,
Okay, so here's the problem with that, right? I know for a fact that the way that we measure like atmosphere contents on like planets is we measure actually, I don't know this for a fact. I shouldn't have said that. I am pretty certain, and I hope someone will correct me if this is wrong, that the way that we measure atmosphere on other planets that are like far away is I would imagine we shoot infrared waves out there and then measure the way that it comes back. Because infrared, basically, okay, it's called an infrared spectroscopy. It's basically like what's a way of, so chemical bonds are like guitar strings, right? And depending on how tight you hold the strings, you get a different note, right? When you pluck it.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So a chemical bond is like that. The hardness of the string, like how taut it's being held, is the strength of the bond. Mm-hmm. And every bond has a different tightness. So a carbon-carbon bond is different than a carbon-hydrogen bond in the note that it makes when it's plucked.
Right, so it'll reflect a different frequency off.
Exactly. So the plucking is shooting the infrared light wave at it, basically. That's how an FTIR works. Which is, I said that in my last episode, and I was like, if people want to know how it works, just listen to this super long episode, I guess. But so like that's like something that you could, I'm pretty sure, I mean, I'm sure that there are amateur astronomers that can prove that one wrong. You know what I mean? Like, that's the problem with these theories.
Unless that's what everybody wants.
Unless that's what everyone wants. I think the farther, actually, it's funny, the guy, my neighbor up here, Dave Belisle, who's also a fan of the show, he's big into like amateur astronomy. He's got all these cool telescopes and stuff. I should see if he has more info on this or if he can actually measure it himself. But
I just thought it was like a really old theory that I remember from, one of my first ventures into this realm.
It's really,
that I thought was kind of neat.
I think it's cool. I really like it when old conspiracy theories start to old science fiction starts to take on reality because people who were watching science fiction back in the day are now scientists.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like I love that. I think it's so cool. That's really cool, dude. No, I like that one.
All right, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is one that scared me so bad as a kid. The Lady of Fatima.
Oh.
So
I know this one very well as well.
So scary. So this one involves all kinds of stuff. It involves a mass sighting of the Virgin Mary, supposedly. It involves 3 shepherd children, basically. So the story goes that this happened in Portugal.
Mm-hmm.
And so in 1917, 3 shepherd children in Fatima in Portugal saw a apparition of the Virgin Mary. So it was 3 little kids. And so they came, she came to them basically and told them that, I will appear again, but every day pray the rosary, whatever, to bring peace and all this stuff. And then she supposedly came back. So every time she came, she gave them a vision of the future or a vision of something, right?
Right.
And the last time that she came, so all these people came to see. And so I'm just going to read this from Wikipedia here because I think they give it a better story than I can. So, as early as July 1917, it was claimed that the Virgin Mary had promised a miracle for the last of her apparitions on October 13th, so that all would believe. What happened then became known as the Miracle of the Sun. A huge crowd, variously estimated between 30,000 and 100,000, including newspaper reporters and photographers, gathered at Cova de Ira. The incessant rain had ceased, and there was a thin layer of cloud. Lucia, who's one of the shepherd's children, seeing light rising from the lady's hands and the sun appearing as a silver disk, called out, "Look at the sun." She later had no memory of saying this. Witnesses later spoke of the sun appearing to change colors and rotate like a wheel. Witnesses gave wildly varying descriptions of the sun's dance. So, and no movement or other phenomena of the sun was recorded by scientists at the time.
I'm first of all impressed that you could read all that at this point in the night. And after the amount we've had to drink. Anyway.
Dude, I know.
So that's pretty impressive in and of itself.
So here's the funny thing is, so nowadays people say that, she yells, "Look at the sun." All these people look at the sun. Their eyes start to play tricks on them because they're staring at the sun.
Yeah.
Right. And so the sun starts to change colors because their eyes were dying, right? Yeah, don't look at the sun.
All of our listeners, we love you. Don't look at the sun.
Look at the sun. But when I was a kid, again, this was in that book that I had. I don't think my mom realized the damage she did by buying me that book. Like,
she bought it for you too?
Yeah. No, she used to let me buy books at Barnes & Noble's every time we went. That was one thing that was great with my mom when I was a kid was every time we went out to a store, if there was a book I wanted, she would buy it for me.
That's pretty cool.
So I always had a book when I was a kid. But one of them that I always had with me was this stupid one that I bought as like a 7-year-old or something that was on Scary Crap. Anyways, so when she appeared to the kids, when the Virgin Mary supposedly appeared to the kids, she told them that she would bring secrets for them, right? And the first secret was a vision of hell. The second vision was about World War I ending, and then a prediction of another great war.
World War II, yeah.
Right? And then
the third one is where it gets interesting.
The third one now is part of a whole thing, right?
Yep.
So supposedly, I think we should read maybe the third one. It's too, I don't know, maybe it's too long. The third one, it's not many people think that the third one is, well, I don't know. How would we explain it?
So this is and I don't mean to steal your topic, but this is also one that's been super interesting to me all my life too. And part of it was upbringing, part of it was there was just some fun stories on it. The third one was sealed for a long time.
Yes,
because they were told to seal it, right? If I remember right, and I'm going off memory here. So they were told to seal it.
So she was told. So they were told to. So I think what scared me most when I was a kid was I had read in that book that the third secret was still unknown, except to the Pope, and it made the Pope very upset, and that the other two, only one of the children ever talked after seeing the Virgin Mary, supposedly,
and that was John Paul II, right?
Yeah, the Pope was John Paul II. Yeah,
he was the only one that opened it, kind of like before he was, and then he resealed it until later on.
Yeah.
And then later on, they were like, "Oh no, it's no big deal. Don't worry about it."
Yeah,
so that was the theory. That was, and then there's. Well, I'll let you finish it. But yeah.
Okay, so here's what the third one was, right? So this is what she says. She says, after the two parts which I have already explained, at the left of Our Lady and a little above, we saw an angel with a flaming sword in his left hand, flashing. It gave out flames that looked as though they would set the world on fire. But they died out in contact with the splendor that Our Lady radiated towards him from her right hand. Pointing to the earth with his right hand, the angel cried out in a loud voice, "Penance, penance, penance." And we saw in an immense light that is God, something similar to how people appear in a mirror when they pass in front of it. Bishop dressed in white. We had the impression that it was the Holy Father. Other bishops, priests, men and women, religious, going up a steep mountain, at the top of which there was a big cross of rough-hewn trunks as of a cork tree with the bark. Before reaching there, the Holy Father passed through a big city, half in ruins and half trembling with halting step. Afflicted with pain and sorrow, he prayed for the souls of the corpses he met on his way. Having reached the top of the mountain, on his knees at the foot of the big cross, he was killed by a group of soldiers who fired bullets and arrows at him. And in the same way, there died, one after another, the other bishops, priests, men and women religious, and various lay people of different ranks and positions. Beneath the two arms of the cross there were two angels, each with a crystal aspersorium in his hand, in which they gathered up the blood of the martyrs, and with it sprinkled the souls that were making their way to God. So, terrifying.
Yeah, so there's lots of ways that people have interpreted this stuff too. Like some people were saying that it was it predicted John Paul II's assassination attempt.
Yep.
Right. So that was part of it.
So the other thing people think is that potentially it's talking about the suppression of religion in communist Russia.
Right.
Because it seemed like in the second secret, the whole second half of the second secret is praying for Russia to return to Catholicism, basically. Right? They say, let Russia return back to the Immaculate Heart or something.
Wasn't it talking about the Cold War too or something?
Yeah, well, that's what they think. They think that it talks about then, the end of World War II, but then the reigning up of a great irreligious power, right? So when I was a kid, though, the fact that this was hidden, supposedly, and in the 60s, the Vatican said that it was probable that the third secret would remain forever hidden, right? Oh, scared the crap out of me when I was a kid. Scared. Which
who knows if it still has, right? Because we don't.
No, yeah, who knows, right? Again, it's part of the Vatican's secret things or whatever.
Secret arc, yeah.
Dude, it scared me so bad when I was a kid, and then now I'm like, well.
And I agree with you too. Between that and, do you remember there was similar stuff, but not quite as secretive about what was it? Our Lady of Medjugorje or Medjugorje?
Yeah. So every one of those Our Lady of Bank things are actually named for. Are usually named for appearances of the Virgin Mary to someone.
So here's the weird thing, and this is where I'm going to confuse the shit out of everybody right now. But as non-religious as I am, these Mary things freak me the fuck out.
Dude, me too, man. I think it's our upbringing.
And I don't know why.
I think it's our upbringing.
Yeah,
because it's part of you. Because part of you is like, listen, listen. I try to be a good person, right? Like right. I've never killed anybody. I don't steal. I don't adulterate, or you know what I mean? Like I try to be as good as I can be, right? And I think I'm doing an okay job of that. You know, but it's that doubt, right? It's always doubt, man, and that's what is at the heart of all these conspiracy things and paranormal things too. And so it's, again, I think it comes back to that question that we were talking about in the last part of this, which is if the Virgin Mary appeared to 100,000 people, right? Does that mean that that's real?
Yeah, and I know there's some skeptical articles out there that are really like, oh, it's mass hysteria type of thing, and I don't know.
The thing that I think is funny with that one, honestly, that part of it is probably the least scary to me. That like people were staring at the sun and then started to see weird crap. You know, it reminds me of that scene in Invader Zim where he's like, "I'll find our way home," and he looks at the sun, and then after 10 seconds, he screams, "My eyes!" and his eyes start to
it's like,
burn.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it's that to me isn't the scary part. What's scary is that I don't know, man.
I don't get what was in the third one that they had to keep it secret for so long. And there's no way it was as simple as what they...
I think it was that discussion of the church leaders being murdered. You know, because it talks about, I mean, when she says it was your Holy Father, or it was the Holy Father, that means the Pope.
Now, you know, some people have tied that into the whole Catholic Church sex abuse scandal too now. That was like kind of it was predicting that as well.
I mean...
Where it was like kind of taking down the big people in the church because of that, which it kind of did, right?
I mean, it brought down what, like 2 bishops?
No, I mean, Ratzinger basically resigned as pope for that reason, you know.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
There could be some. There's a million ways of interpreting it.
Yeah, I think it's scary. You know what I think is also scary too is that at the end of the day, this was 3 little kids,
right?
Who caused. I mean, we're talking about it today. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Think about the other, like, you know, a little kid comes up to you and screams, you know, "Oh, I saw a werewolf," right?
Right.
That doesn't lead to 100,000 people going and staring at the sun for a half hour, you know?
And I think you and I talk about it partly because of when we were exposed to the story.
I think
when
we were kids, yeah.
Yeah, because we were kids and we grew up in like fairly religious families,
right?
You know, putting it lightly in some cases.
Yeah, it's
where and there's something with the I don't know. There's something about Mary, right? Like there's something there really is though. There's something
that is blasphemous.
No, I know. But there really is. There's something different. Like I can make these off the wall conspiracy theories about Jesus being a human alien hybrid.
Yeah.
And for some reason that doesn't bother me, but I don't mess with Mary. Like,
you know what I think? You know what I think it is?
Mess with her.
You know what I think it is? Honestly, is I think what it is, honestly, for me at least, is that my mom, when I was a kid, my mom didn't believe in reptilians, but she did believe in Jesus and Mary and everything, right?
Right.
So there's always a part of you that I think will, I don't know. I mean, in the same, like, I don't find, like in Hinduism, right? I don't worry about, honestly, I don't know nearly enough about Hinduism as I should, considering the amount of friends I have that are Indian, but that are Hindu as well, not just, you know what I mean? But like I don't get freaked out about, or kind of, you know, uneasy, I suppose you would say, around paranormal things relating to like reincarnation, right?
And I totally believe in that stuff too, which is weird for me growing up Catholic, right?
But you know what I mean? Like I think it has a lot to do with our cultural lens, and also, like, you know, the vast majority nowadays, you know, not really anymore, but a big swath of the American populace believes in that kind of same religion, right?
Right.
So it's almost like a, as much as we'd want to be free of it and its effects, or as want to be free of it, that makes it sound like, I think that makes it sound worse than it is. But as much as we might think that we're free of the superstitious parts of it, I think that that's always going to be part of this culture and us living in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. And I think that for you and I specifically, because we were raised that way,
it just gets
like no matter how much we try to debunk every little thing on Catholicism if we wanted to, right? And we don't. I don't blatantly go out.
We don't go out of our way, but it's still going to be spooky, I guess.
Right, but there's some shit that you can't explain. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like that. I don't know. So definitely some higher power created. You can just put whatever name you want on it. You know?
See, I don't know, man. I don't want to get too much into creation or whatever, but I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know. I don't know enough.
I will say, after having or seeing 3 kids being born, it's a whole different perspective for me. Yeah,
that's what people say. I don't know, man.
Know. Like, especially the boys, it's like they have all the same parts as me, but smaller. Like it's just so cool. The whole concept is just, and I'm not gonna get too far into it in case there's any kids listening, but
I think that's probably the funniest description of childbirth I've ever heard. They're the same as me, but smaller. It's okay, we're on 4 and 5 for each of us. So what's your 4th topic?
My 4th is the super soldiers.
Okay.
And specifically, there was a guy that caught my attention back in my early years of researching conspiracy theories, and that was Duncan O'Finian. Since then, he's been debunked and kind of a little more fringy, although that can be a conspiracy, right?
Right.
If it gets too debunked.
Yeah.
But I think the concept of the super soldiers is interesting, where it's they're programmed or abducted or whatever you want to call it as kids, and then they have these either physical implants where this particular guy was claimed to have a super fast kind of ninja like reflex in his right arm, but it wasn't in his left. I don't know, where he could do things super fast with just that one arm. And
why would they just do it to the right arm?
I don't know. Maybe they wanted the, I don't know.
They have the technology, right? Like, it doesn't, yeah, okay. Anyways, that's interesting, man. I can
make really inappropriate comments from there.
Moving right along. I have actually never, like, I've heard of, like, the super soldier thing, obviously, and I'm a big comic book nerd, so, like, that's a big whole thing. But
yeah, it's I have like never, Captain America, but the real version.
I have never heard of, I have never heard of him before.
It was really interesting, and I thought it was crazy, which it is to a certain degree, right? But then you look at things like MK Ultra was actually real. That's been proven and talked about for a while there. That was the CIA's mind control program. There's some, I don't know if it's been officially admitted to yet, but the remote viewing thing, that could be a whole few podcasts in and of itself. There's a lot of different things that have been coming out from different research that's been done. DARPA gets a huge budget that nobody knows what it goes to, so who knows what kind of crazy stuff has been going on.
I think it's interesting that this idea of like a super soldier, right? But then I also think that everything in modern technology suggests that why the hell would we use a human at all, right? Why not use a robot? And so I really think that that's very interesting. Those, like, a super soldier only makes sense if you can't create a robot that's just as good or as, I guess you'd say, nimble for a task as a human, right? So, like, what's the point of making a Ophinian super soldier? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
and
don't.
I guess maybe it was the timing of it because
Well,
he was claiming to have been activated during like Vietnam. And,
so that's what I think is really interesting is like I guess it would make sense in Vietnam, but I would think that if we had the ability to control like biotechnology that way, we probably also had the ability to make like robots that were just, you know what I mean? Like I always think
that's a really good point.
I really like those retro conspiracies because a lot of the time they're kind of like they kind of have water thrown on them because they don't like they look at the future in a very like retro way, right? Like it's almost like you watch a movie made in the 80s about what space travel would be like in like the year 3000, right? And they're still using like tube computer screens, right? And it's because they didn't know about LCD or about, you know what I mean? Like they didn't know about plasma and stuff back then to make screens. So they thought that, okay, yeah, maybe our computers would get better, but our screens would always, you know, like those little details that they forget to think about or if they forget to change, I think are really telling. And I think that in like that sense, that story like that is really one of those. I'd love to. I'm gonna have to read more though. I've already opened them up on Wikipedia on my phone.
Yeah, Project Talent is like I think the program he was allegedly part of, and it was kind of the precursor or part of MK Ultra. I forget what it was.
And you know what? It makes me think too about those people that claim that they've been abducted for like satanic cults or whatever. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same kind of thing.
Concept, yeah.
Yeah, I wonder too if anyone ever like it's like that joke where, you know, someone again Arrested Development, it's like the only Arrested Development, The Simpsons, and you know, It's Always Sunny are the only shows I watch. But it's like it's like in Arrested Development where Michael thinks that his girlfriend is blind. And so he tries throwing her cane at her and she doesn't catch it. And he's like, or he thinks that she's not blind. And so she throws the cane at her and she doesn't catch it. And he's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Right?
Yeah.
I wonder if anyone ever like, you know, tried to karate chop him to the head and his super powerful robotic right arm ripped it off. You know what I mean? Like there would be way to there, you know, oh, you know, or it's like Mac from It's Always Sunny where he's like, you know, you know, I'll have to use my karate to get us out of the situation. And Charlie's like, you know, why don't you do a flip right now then? I've never seen you do a flip in your entire life, but you claim that you can. Kind of the same thing. Like, if you're a super soldier, then, you know, do a flip right now.
I think he talks about that somehow. There's like some kind of knife fighting. Look it up on YouTube. There's knife fighting with him where somebody like tries to fight him or something with an I don't know. There's some crazy crap in there.
I definitely have to check it out.
Either way, he's probably a badass. He might be batshit crazy, but he's probably a badass. I think so. Back to your previous point with why don't we just get robots to do it? The catch with these people, and this goes down a really deep rabbit hole with like bloodlines, and he's supposed to be of a special bloodline.
Of course, yeah.
Anyway, but the one difference, the biggest difference, I think, is that they were trying to tap into some of these kids when they were being trained, right? Psychic abilities, and that's one thing you can't get with the robots. You know, is that extra the human brain component.
Sure.
Of it, you know.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. No, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, you could probably get something that can lift or shoot better or whatever, or you know, drone better than you want a human to do. But you're missing that kind of spiritual plane, next plane element of it, which is again tinfoil hat. But
hey, we're already down the rabbit hole, so who cares?
It's part of the theory. Yeah. And it's interesting that the newest conspiracy guy that not the newest, but the newest guy that got killed, Max Spears or whatever, that UK conspiracy theorist. It was a UFOologist that suddenly vomited up brown or black bile and then died
right
out of nowhere. You know, he was also claimed to have had some of these abilities, I guess, or something like that, and was like a victim of psychic attacks and all this other crazy shit. But you know, like I always say, not all conspiracy theories are just theories, you know? Like, yeah, this one's probably a little batshit crazy, but what if there's a grain of truth in some of this, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you get into some of the things like MK Ultra. I mean, that was legit, you know, where they were trying mind control shit on American people. So who knows? But I thought it was interesting.
Interesting, yeah. No, that's a cool one. That's a really cool one.
All right, what's your number 4?
So my number 4, actually, my number 4 is one of my favorite ones because of the name, and also because I always thought it was so fascinating. So it is. So the translation for this name is one who stops the flow of rivers, and it is the Mokele Mbembe. It is basically a brontosaurus, a sauropod, is what they think it maybe is, and this, like, the stories about this. So supposedly it lives in the Congo River basin, and they've been talking about this thing for like 200 years, right? For pretty much as long as we've been sort of in the Congo River basin, right? But one thing that I think is so interesting with this is that it kind of goes to that story of Bigfoot, and I sometimes wonder if people who believe in Bigfoot, because it maybe is a creature that lives in the wild that we haven't seen in a while, or, you know, there's not many of them or whatever, right?
Yeah.
I think the Mokele Mbembe is sort of a perfect, it's so large and it's so comically out of place, right? That there's just no way that it could exist. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, to a degree, but I also think
know
there's something
well,
to be said for the dinosaurs, like the Nessies and the who the hell's the one over in Lake Champlain?
Champ.
Champ. Yeah,
Champ's the best. Yeah, man.
They all have similar. They're just different kinds of dinosaurs.
I know.
That somehow survived. I don't know.
You know what's really interesting is, so they actually did a interview with a number of tribe members in like So actually, okay, I found it here. So it was a Discovery Channel documentary in 2001 called Congo. And they actually interviewed some members of this tribe, and they actually pointed out a picture of a rhino as being the Mokele Mbembe.
Oh, God.
Right? But the thing is that rhinos aren't found in that area at all, right? So it's actually kind of an interesting... So now the question is, well, maybe there are rhinos there that we haven't documented, or maybe this is like a leftover cultural heritage. Do you know what I mean? There were rhinos there maybe 500 years ago, and they're still telling stories about, you know. But I love that one so much, and I remember in high school reading about it and being like, "Oh, that'd be so cool." You know what I mean? Just thinking how awesome it would be.
That's the first I've heard of a brontosaurus surviving.
Yeah, dude. So, and the thing too is, it's like, if Nessie is a sauropod, like, well, Nessie's not a sauropod. Nessie potentially is a plesiosaur, right?
Right.
What is to stop a sauropod from existing as well? Those things were, sauropods were like some of the most efficient. Some of them, I'm putting on my dino nerd hat here. They were some of the most efficient eaters. Like, they didn't have some sauropods didn't have teeth. They just literally like sucked down leaves, which is why they got so big, right? They didn't chew; they just like took it in and digested and whatever. So it's kind of like, I think that's Titanosaurus that did that, but they're in the same kind of general line or whatever. But
it was way easier when we were kids, by the way. It was like T-Rex, Brontosaurus,
I know,
Pterodactyl. So that's it.
You just had to know the ones that the Power Rangers morphed into. That was all you had to worry about.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I think I think it's super interesting though, and I really do love that story. I would love for it to be true, but
my only problem with that over like the Nessies of the world is like its size. Like, it has to eat,
what's so fascinating, right, is that, so we now think that those dinosaurs, like in Jurassic Park, there's that view of them walking along the plain, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now and they even show this in Jurassic Park, we've started to think that actually they probably lived most of their lives almost submerged in water.
Oh,
because they're just so heavy, right? That they had to be basically like waist deep in water to just like live gravitationally, right? Like, so they I mean, it's a suggested you know, we don't really know how dinosaurs behaved, you know, in any kind of real way, in the same way that we know about like living animals. But I think it's really fascinating that, you know, I don't think that the leap between Nessie and Mbembe is that big. You know what I mean?
Yeah, from that perspective, it makes sense if it's more water based rather than land based, because then it's much easier to hide shit in water, you know, than it is on land. Because we haven't explored most of the water, you know.
Well,
I think that's.
I mean, the thing, like, I don't want to make it sound like it's living in, like, it never submerged.
No.
No, but no,
every
but
time we look for it, it's in water.
Right. I get your point though. Yeah, I think too that like, as I'm always interested in, as these parts of the world get smaller, and like as the unexplored portions of the world get smaller and smaller, where do we stick Bigfoot and Nessie and Champ, and you know what I mean? Like,
the problem is that that's the land part that gets smaller and smaller. In my view, there's still a ton of water parts that need to be explored. You know,
so like, for instance, right, like, yeah, there is still a lot of water, right? But even then, I wonder if we're not going to see the same kind of, so this, in the history of like occultism or paranormal, it's a pretty interesting phenomena to see how, again, kind of the point of the whole Mad Scientist show is that these topics just, again, they don't change. They just kind of get stuffed into smaller bags, right? So we never stopped believing that diseases could come from magical causes. We just nowadays don't think that witches can do it. We think that it can happen from, airplanes spraying us with poison.
Yeah.
Right? Right. So the bag that those things go into, the plausible explanations where you can find wiggle room get smaller and smaller. And it's the same way with like something like telekinesis or something, right? If now science seems to suggest that our thought or our thinking resides in the brain, and it seems to be linked to the electricity or the electrical activity of the neurons and stuff, then we've started to try to find a consciousness or a soul in electricity. So now people are talking about how we can transmit energy or whatever, right? As opposed to before, when it was much easier to say, like, well, our soul just leaves our bodies. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's the same concept. It's just
right. So I
find more.
Exactly. So I wonder, like, eventually we're gonna explore the whole ocean, and all of a sudden Nessie will be an interdimensional thing. And it's the same with Bigfoot, right? Bigfoot's now interdimensional.
I've never heard of Nessie being interdimensional, though.
No,
but I see the concept now.
But I guarantee it'll happen. Yeah, I'm calling that right now. If this show never gets popular, I'm calling interdimensional Nessie.
All right, I will.
Dude, I'm telling you, man, it's gonna happen.
Well, I mean, I buy into the USOs way over the UFOs.
Oh yeah.
Even though I know there's plenty of documented UFO cases, but I buy into that there's USOs way more.
If you can survive in a hostile environment, in a hostile atmosphere, it doesn't matter what fluid is the atmosphere, if it's air or if it's water, right? They got here from fucking space. They can, you know what I mean?
True.
In theory, they can whatever.
Unless they were already here, right? Like Atlanteans and all that stuff.
This actually fits in really well with your fifth thing, right?
It does, actually. So this one's the most batshit. I have a hard time saying it with a straight face, especially now.
Dude, my fifth one is comical, so this one's good.
But this, so all right. Let me just give a little bit into how the sausage is made, right? Like when Chris and I talked about doing this episode, we're like, let's come up with the most batshit crazy stuff that we could possibly come up with, just to have a little bit of fun and bullshit a little bit more, because it could be interesting, and it's way more outside the box than our normal shows.
Oh yeah.
So I went on a Google rampage, and this is probably the best one I came up with. That Saddam was concealing a Stargate and that was the reason for the Iraq, the most recent, I should say, Iraq invasion.
I love this one. This is one of my favorites.
And when I mentioned it to you and you made that comment, I was like, "You've actually heard of it?"
Dude, it puts all of my favorite things together. It puts together ancient aliens, bad space exploration myths, UFOs, and the idea of like
Nibiru.
Yeah, it's got. I mean, it's got. Listen, it could only be better if Saddam was a secret reptilian who was protecting the Stargate. Which I get. Which, as I say that, I guarantee that's been posted someplace online.
It probably has. I only went off one website.
I guarantee that it's something online.
Read the name of it because of the website. It's crazy enough. Anyway, but the theory on the surface, right? For no pun intended, actually kind of seems plausible.
No, it doesn't. It's a Stargate.
All right. So the theory is that Saddam had or knew of a Stargate, right? Which is translates Stargate for my listeners.
So basically, like, but this is okay. What they thought. Listen, number one, I don't want to cut this down before it starts. The only reason that they think that this is a Stargate is because it kind of looks like a doorway. It's like a big monolith. It's like two pieces of sandstone with another piece on top of it that's like carved kind of nicely, whatever. And I think maybe it's actually got a name of like the Door of the Sun or something. But anyways, whatever. A Stargate supposedly is an area where there is a set location for a warp in space and time. So think of it like the beginning of a wormhole.
Yeah, kind of like a portal, teleportal.
Yeah, it's portals like in Portal. So it's like, you have this doorway that, when activated by the right conditions, the right energy or something, you actually like walk through it, or you can move a ship through it or something, and you'll end up on like the other side of the universe. So this
one was that they were placed by the Anunnaki, which ancient aliens,
of course,
goes way back into that, gods, quote unquote, of ancient Sumeria. Mm-hmm. And it says, and the website says, in this scenario, when Nibiru, or I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, the alleged 12th planet, right? That was the 2012 Planet X crap that never killed us, is closest to Earth. The Anunnaki will take the opportunity to travel to Earth through that same Stargate, and will set up their encampment in Iraq and eventually take over the whole world. So we all had to invade Iraq real quick, run in there, shut down the Stargate, destroy everything, and then kill Saddam Hussein and be done with it. And that saved the whole world from extinction by the Anunnaki.
Like, I'm pretty sure that I'm I'm almost certain that if aliens came here, and like they always say this on Ancient Aliens, they're like, listen, if you went to another world and you had to build something that would last forever, what would you build it out of? And in my mind, I'm always thinking, I don't know, like some kind of super material that they have. Plastic, which never degrades, right?
Right.
Plastic does not degrade. Does not
always
biodegrade.
Choose paper bags, not plastic.
Right? Yeah, like if they built their super towers out of, non-degradable polyethylene, they would never go away and they'd pretty much stay rigid and whatever, right?
Well, we would have knocked them down because they would have been obvious.
Right. So instead, they built these. They spent, as opposed to making an easily processable, a light and a very simple to create material, they chiseled it out of stone. You know what I mean?
Well,
like it's
durable, right?
It's semi-durable. I mean, the same. Like, I love it. The same people that claim that they built everything out of sandstone because it's strong or whatever, then claim that the Sphinx shows signs of erosion because it's such a light. God, don't get me started, dude. Don't get me started on Ancient Aliens. It's too much for my heart. Though. I love.
Why are they in all the cave paintings, the cave paintings?
Dude, I seriously, I love.
Where's the guy with the hair to come up?
Aliens. I love the Stargate one so much. That's probably one of my favorites too. Like, I'm so happy you thought of it because I would have.
Well, and then there's theories that they're all over the place. You know,
well, that's the thing. They claim that they're. I mean, and that's another hilarious question. Why would they be all over the place? If you have the technology to transport yourself 1 billion miles, right, in an instant, why do you give a crap about 1,000 miles to get to the other side of the planet? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, I really do like that one. And it's fun too because it puts together anti-American conspiracy theories too.
Right.
It's so good. That's such a good one.
And there's this thing gets into all sorts of stuff on there about that whole side of things too. Something connected with the Greys in Area 51, but that's a whole nother.
Of course.
They have to be tied in, right?
As you do.
All right, what's your last one? Wrap us out here.
My last one is really stupid. It is the Mongolian death worm.
I like it. I like the name at least.
Now,
tell me about it.
I am going to read you a quote. Okay. This is from On the Trail of Ancient Man. Okay. And it's this is from Roy Chapman Andrews' 1926 book. It's called On the Trail of the Ancient Man. And so this is a quote that he has from the Mongolian Prime Minister, Damdin Bazar, who in 1922 described the worm. He says, quote, "It is shaped like a sausage about 2 feet long, has no head nor leg, and it is so poisonous that merely to touch it means instant death. It lives in the most desolate parts of the Gobi Desert."
Dun, dun, dun.
And so
it's like Sandlot type of thing, or like
it is so hilarious. And so in Mongolian, and I'm not entirely certain if Mongolian. So they're using the Cyrillic alphabet here. I'm going to guess that it's said pretty much close to that. But so it's Olgoy Horoi. If that's probably completely wrong, and if I am wrong, please, Mongolian listeners, call in or call in. Put us right on Twitter. But I just love this one. When I was a kid, I was certain that if I dug long enough, I'd find one of these. Right? Like I was like,
yeah, I think we all have some kind of strange creature we always thought we'd dig up. Right?
I really like this one because the thing too is that it's so out of place, right? It seems so silly to think of a 2 foot long sausage.
Makes me hungry when you put it that way.
I know, being terrifying. Like, you know what I mean? It's not a snake, it's just a worm. It's kind of like, well, I guess that's scary, but worms are super slow, right?
Yeah, so you're talking like an earthworm, right? Not like a centipede or like...
As far as I can tell, it is like an earthworm. It's like just a big ass earthworm.
Yeah, they're not super scary.
No, but the thing is that they're like it's like a serious legend, dude.
So that's the other question. Where does this particular one? Where do you think it kind of originates or originates?
That's the thing. This one is so. The reason I like this one so much is that it's so culturally out of sorts for me that I have no fucking idea.
Because some legends or most legends you can kind of put modern day interpretation on, like we've been talking about.
Absolutely, and that's the thing, right? Is that there's I first off, it comes from a culture like Mongolian culture that I know nothing about, right? Mm-hmm. I really do not know very much about it at all. The little bit about the Mongols that I know comes from the little bit of Kazakhstan that I know. You know what I mean? Which comes from Dinar.
Right.
So it's like, I don't really know all that much. So like, who the hell knows why, maybe they had a historical worm, right? But I just remember reading this even as a kid, reading this in those books about, this was on the same in the same book, in the same chapter, is things like Nessie and Bigfoot, which I was convinced were real. You know what I mean? And then to read something like this worm, I just remember being like, well, why is this in here? This seems so silly. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but then you're like, how silly is it if it's been around for so long?
Right,
you know?
right.
It makes you wonder, like, okay, what's the big deal with the worm? Why is it still around?
I really do like. I find this one so interesting and so, like I said, just so strange. I really don't. This is one like I don't get. I do not get.
Part of it is maybe like people were just disappearing from wandering in the desert, and they had to blame it on something. So they're like, "Oh, big worm." Okay.
Maybe, and you know what? I think partially too, because it's in the desert, right? Something with that, like a snake in the desert, is much. I mean, snakes are pretty fast, anyways, right?
Yeah.
I think about this one in like sandworms, like in Beetlejuice, right?
Yeah.
Like it's the same kind of idea. I guess maybe that's where they got it from, right? But yeah, man, I don't know. And then supposedly, like there are those smaller ones, right? But supposedly there's like a ginormous one too. There's like the death. That's like
the
huge.
death worm.
Yeah.
Capital D.
Yeah, I just don't get this one at all, man. But I really like it.
Crazy. I like it too.
And it can never be its own episode because I don't think there's nearly enough on it. But
none of these could be. But
no, but it's so fun. It's so fun. Anyway,
that's why we did this.
So we've done a lot of time.
Yeah, we have.
We've been talking for 5 hours now. There's not 5 hours of content here, but we've been talking for 5 hours.
Oh, it's so much fun though.
Man. Listen,
you know what? Anybody who's listening now, if you tweet either one of us, actually both of us, Mad Scientist and Pints and Puzzles, you have to tweet both of us the word. I don't come up with the word.
The word apricot.
So, yeah. All right. There we go. If any of you tweet up. Try that again. All right. If anybody still listening now, probably, I'm going to say 2+ hours into this. Yeah. Tweet both of us at Mad Scientist Pod and at Pints and Puzzles the word apricot. You will get 2 free coasters from me and a sticker from Chris.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So anybody that tweets us that will get that, because that means you are a dedicated listener to the show. And sorry, Chris, your mom does not count.
No!
Anybody in my immediate
okay. Let's say
anybody else.
Yeah.
Anybody else that's still listening, tweet us that and you will get your prizes.
Yes,
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So this has been really fun. I am Chris from the Mad Scientist Podcast. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Podbean, the website, themadscientistpodcast.com. You can also, I think I just got approved to be on Stitcher, which is pretty sweet. So I'm also on Stitcher now. And I'm also on SoundCloud, but I only have like 2 episodes on SoundCloud because they limit how much you can upload. And TJ has been TJ.
And I've been TJ for some of this episode. And you can find me at Pints and Puzzles on Twitter. That's the only social media I'm on. And also, I think the only thing we're on is iTunes and iHeartRadio right now. Oh, and Google Play. But any of you that are listening have already figured out where to find us.
True.
So.
And you can also find Pints and Puzzles on the Mad Scientist website. We actually have a link on the Friends of the Show page. If you click on the logo, it'll take you to the Libsyn page, I think.
Perfect. That sounds good.
Which is awesome. Thank you so much, guys, and we will see you next time.
Sounds good. Take care, guys.